Welcome to NTD News Today. Here are today's top stories. The International Court of Justice orders Israel to halt its military offensive in Rafah in southern Gaza. The latest on the UN top court's ruling. Trump dives into the deep blue Bronx, where Biden won with 83% of the vote in 2020. We'll speak with a Republican strategist about the former president's New York City campaign stop. Two abortion-inducing drugs could soon be considered controlled and dangerous substances in Louisiana. More on a new bill that just passed. Record-breaking travel expected ahead of the Memorial Day weekend. Data from the world's busiest airport, Atlanta. The U.S. is encouraging Europe to give Russian money to Ukraine. What Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen discussing in Italy with other G7 nations. Could your used coffee grounds help prevent air pollution? Hear how an Australian university is using them to improve production of concrete. It says the technology could be used for more than just coffee.
This is NTD News Today, live from our NTD Global Headquarters. Here are Stephanie Cox and Chris Beers.
Welcome to NTD News Today. Stephanie Cox will be back on next Tuesday. Judges at the UN's top court just ordered Israel to halt its military offensive in Rafah, citing the immediate risk to the Palestinian people. South Africa's lawyers asked the court to do so last week. South Africa is accusing Israel of genocide and says attacks must be stopped to ensure Palestinians' survival. Israel says its military is operating carefully and precisely in the southern Gaza city and dismissed the accusations as baseless. It argues the operations are in self-defense and targeted at Hamas terrorists that attacked Israel on October 7th. The International Court of Justice has no way to enforce any ruling on Israel. Israel's military recovered the bodies of 3 hostages in an overnight operation. The army says it found them in the city of Jabalia in northern Gaza.
It is with a heavy heart that I share that last night, Israeli special forces in Gaza rescued the bodies of our hostages, Hanania Vlonka, Michelle Nissenbaum, Orion Hernandez.
The IDF says Hamas killed all 3 in Israel on October 7th and took their bodies into Gaza. 59-year-old Nissenbaum was a Brazilian Israeli on his way to pick up his 4-year-old granddaughter at an IDF base. Hernandez was a French-Mexican citizen at the Nova Music Festival. He was there with his partner, Shani Luke. The IDF found Luke's body and 2 others in Rafah a week ago. 42-year-old Yavlanka was a father of 2. He was also taken from the music festival. A group of representing families of hostages says the bodies have been returned for burial. House Speaker Mike Johnson delivered a keynote address in Washington, D.C. yesterday to mark 76 years of Israeli independence.
After years of homelessness and persecution, in May 1948, a new nation was born, based on the precepts of liberty and justice and peace. Today, as international bureaucrats have issued arrest warrants for Israel's leaders and likened Israel's just war to the barbarism of October 7th, Washington has been united, I'm proud to tell you, in a bipartisan manner against this madness, and we will stand together.
Johnson said Hamas terrorists seek to destroy the shared principles of Western civilization. The House Speaker said Hamas is supported by the Iranian regime and is platformed by the United Nations. Johnson said the terror group has even recruited apologists among some officials in America. Johnson also announced yesterday that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will address a joint session of Congress. The House Speaker says he is working with Netanyahu on a date and will send an official invitation this week. Thousands attended former President Trump's rally last night right here in New York City. He aims to win over voters in the blue state who are frustrated with issues like the economy and illegal immigration NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao was in the South Bronx.
Right here in the Bronx. Who would think? Who would think?
This is former President Trump's first rally in New York in about 8 years. And this is one of the bluest areas of a blue state that hasn't voted for a Republican presidential candidate in over 4 decades. But Trump says he has a chance.
Who said we're not going to win New York? We're going to win New York. So,
and Trump appealing to New Yorkers on the issue of the economy.
We're going to bring businesses and big taxpayers back to New York.
Crime.
We're going to bring safety back to our street.
Immigration.
You don't have public spaces. They're occupied by migrants in tents.
And even New York's public transit system.
We're going to renovate New York's subway system so it no longer looks like it hasn't been cleaned since 1932.
And Trump blaming all these problems on President Biden.
He's not getting the job done.
The South Bronx is also a neighborhood that's over 60% Hispanic and over 30% Black. Recent polls are showing that these voters are turning to Trump over the issue of the economy, although they traditionally vote for Democrats. President Biden ramping up his outreach to Black and Hispanic voters in recent weeks.
It's not about me, it's about the alternative as well.
And launching a new ad on Thursday targeting voters right here in New York.
Donald Trump disrespecting black folk is nothing new. He was sued for refusing to rent his apartments to black families and called for the execution of 5 innocent black and brown teenagers.
But Trump seeking to win over these minorities.
It doesn't matter whether you're black or brown or white or whatever the hell color you are, it doesn't matter. We are all Americans and we're going to pull together as Americans.
And now a big thing to watch for will be how President Biden's campaign responds to Trump's activities right here in New York. Specifically, it remains to be seen whether Biden's campaign will be forced to divert more resources to focus on traditionally blue strongholds like here in New York, states that former President Trump is now trying to flip. Reporting from South Bronx, Iris Tao, NTD News.
Here with me to discuss Trump's historic rally in the Bronx is Republican strategist Jason Meister. Jason is also a former Trump Advisory Board member. Jason, thank you so much for joining us today. You were at the rally in the deep blue Bronx last night. Tell us about it and the type of attendees who showed up.
Sure. Thanks for having me. It was a magnificent evening. It was what I call a love fest. But I think what scares and petrifies the Democrats so much about the rally in the South Bronx last night was the fact that it showed them that the people whose votes that they've taken granted of for so many decades are leaving the Democratic plantation of victimhood in favor of this uplifting and empowering message, Donald Trump's aspiration to make this country a place that is great again for all people, whether they're black, white, Asian, Hispanic, Jewish, Muslim, it doesn't matter. And that's the point. That's such a contrast from what Joe Biden and the Democrats' message is.
And what are some of the key issues the people in the South Bronx are looking at?
Look, I think that the issues that the South Bronx are dealing with are a lot of the same issues that America's dealing with, whether it's inflation, gas prices, wars in the Middle East and Ukraine, the fact that we have college campuses where there's anti-Semitism raging. This country is burning right now. Joe Biden and the Democrats have done nothing to help and protect the American people. The South Bronx has crime. It has drug addiction. We need to save the South Bronx. We need to save the New York City area. And I think that it's the Republican policies, not the Democrat policies, that have destroyed these Democrat-run cities all across this country.
And staying with the South Bronx, why did Trump go to the Bronx in particular? Biden won there with 83% of the vote in 2020. He didn't go to Staten Island, where Trump won overwhelmingly in 2020.
Look, well, it's everyone knows that Donald Trump has been locked up in a courthouse because the Democrats know that they can't beat him at the ballot box. So they're putting him in a courthouse, keeping him off the campaign trail. But he's not going to be kept off the campaign trail. If he's stuck in New York, he's going to make lemonade out of lemons. And so he's been going to bodegas. He's been going to firehouses with pizzas. He's been going to the South Bronx because that really is America. All right. This is the diversity of the South Bronx. And the truth of the matter is, Donald Trump said it last night. It doesn't matter if you're black. It doesn't matter if you're white. It doesn't matter if you're Asian, Muslim, Jewish. We're all Americans first. And I think that's the message that he gave last night. And I think it was felt very strongly by the South Bronx residents.
Now, the majority of voters in the Bronx are Black and Latino, two groups that Donald Trump is actually gaining with right now. What's drawing these demographics to him, do you think?
I think that, like I said earlier, I think that these voters, they understand that the Democrat policies have taken a wrecking ball to their communities, whether it's crime, the economy, the job market, drug addiction. They want safe schools. I was standing amongst many mothers that care about their children's future, and they understand what life was like under Donald Trump just a couple of years ago, and they now see the results of life under Joe Biden, and they choose the life under Donald Trump. That's what they choose. They want a safe community. They want free choice. They want the things that Donald Trump delivered on, the lowest Black unemployment in American history, and I think you saw that last night.
Now, last week, Trump drew a massive crowd in Democratic stronghold New Jersey. Now he's in the South Bronx, which again is overwhelmingly Democratic. Could we see more Trump rallies in these blue areas?
I think so. I think it's a great game plan. I think it shows the Democrats that this isn't really just a traditional election year. I think what we're experiencing right now with the Trump MAGA movement, which is the greatest political movement in modern history, I think you're seeing a generational political shift. I think that the traditional lockholds on the Black voter, on the Asian community, on the women and the suburban women, I think that we're changing and rewriting the map. And I think that you are seeing the potential for a landslide election. Now, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because I think we need to have an electoral avalanche to win. But I think that Donald Trump is the man for the job. And I think that you are going to see significant movement in the deep blue communities going forward into November.
Yeah, and with that shift, again, the Black and Latino voters, Trump is gaining with them. It's pretty interesting. Now, Republicans haven't won New York since Ronald Reagan in 1984. Why is that?
They neglect those communities, quite frankly. And it's unfortunate, but Donald Trump has gut renovated the Republican Party. John McCain and Mitt Romney wouldn't drive through the South Bronx, let alone come out and speak for 90 minutes and talk to the citizens of that community and not neglect them. And I think Donald Trump's message was, it's not the government that's going to solve your problems. You are powerful. You can solve these problems. Your community can solve these problems as long as there's a policy at a federal level that allows you to grow, that allows our economy to grow. You're not going to do it with handouts and DEI. You're going to do it by pulling up your bootstraps, working hard, and really aspiring for American exceptionalism. Donald Trump is the symbol of American exceptionalism. He built an unbelievable real estate empire. He became a celebrity television TV star and went straight to the presidency. And I think that Americans actually aspire for exceptionalism, and I think that's what he represents.
And just in closing here, Jason, New York State will boast a whopping 28 electoral votes this election cycle. What do you think Republicans have to do to win New York in the future?
I think they have to stop neglecting these communities in the South Bronx, in Harlem. This is America. And I think that the Trump MAGA movement is going to show the Republican Party the way to win is to touch these people and understand what they're dealing with. And I really think Donald Trump is one of the first presidential candidates that is speaking to the American people instead of at them. And I think that they feel this connection with President Trump that you haven't had a feeling like that with any kind of other politician in history. And I think that you'll see that in the results of the election in November.
All right. Republican strategist Jason Meister, good to have you back on the show. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Ohio's Republican Governor Mike DeWine is calling a rare special session of the General Assembly. That's to make sure both President Biden and former President Trump are on the state's 2024 ballot. DeWine says Ohioans need to be able to have the opportunity to cast a vote for major party candidates. Here's Ohio's governor on the ballot issue there.
Ohio is running out of time to get Joe Biden, the sitting president of the United States, on the ballot this fall. Failing to do so is simply not acceptable. This is a ridiculous, this is an absurd situation.
The special session is set for Tuesday. The Democratic National Convention, where Biden will be nominated, is after Ohio's August 7th ballot deadline. The convention in Chicago starts August 19th and ends on the 22nd. The special session would let lawmakers address the certification deadline. DeWine says it will also allow for a Senate version of the bill that bans foreign spending on Ohio ballot measures. Lawmakers could not find a solution to the ballot issue by the May 9th deadline set by Ohio's Secretary of State. State House Speaker Jason Stevens told reporters that this week that lawmakers do not have the will to pass the necessary measure and called the environment hyper-political. Coming up, severe weather continues across the U.S. that could disrupt holiday travel. Amazing survivor and rescue stories are emerging in the aftermath of the devastating Greenfield, Iowa tornado. And Fulton County DA Fani Willis is appealing a judge's decision to dismiss several charges in Trump's Georgia election case. More details in just a moment here on NTD News Today.
The biggest investigation in FBI history.
There are more than 1,100 arrests.
I sacrificed my dream job to share this information with the American people.
Those involved must be held accountable.
He's an innocent man.
It's going to change narratives no matter what your political perspective is.
According to ancient Chinese medicine, purslane is considered a medicinal herb and is used to help lower cholesterol, improve vascular functions, and prevent diabetes. Perilla seeds can nourish the lungs and spleen. It is used to treat asthma and improve pulmonary functions. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds from Hwangmae Mountain in South Korea. It contains over 90% of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9, the highest concentration possible without chemical additives. The soft gel is made of natural seaweed. It is 100% organic and vegan. Both adults and children can take it with peace of mind. Ancient recipes were passed down from heaven to bring prosperity and longevity. Puritang green vegetable omega-3.
My dad's name was David. He always talked about getting life insurance, and now it's too late.
No one was expecting my husband Dave to suffer from a heart attack. We didn't have life insurance. We thought we had more time.
Don't be Dave, and don't wait until it's too late to get the life insurance coverage you need. And if you don't have enough insurance to cover funeral costs, credit card debt, and other expenses, your family is going to get stuck with the bill. Call now to get affordable life insurance.
Just call
800-494-1562.
If you're over 50, you can't be turned down for this insurance, regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam, no health questions. Your rate will never go up. Your coverage will never go down. And rates start as low as $5 a week. Remember, don't be Dave. Call now.
Call now.
800-494-1562.
You need some help?
Your tow chains are a little loose. Could spark a wildfire. I could show you how to secure them properly if you'd like.
Sure. Thanks a lot.
Anytime. You should check out SmokeyBear.com. They've got a bunch of tips on wildfire prevention.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Join us on NTD Good Morning because we want you to stay informed.
Kickstart your morning with the latest you missed overnight.
Right, and don't forget that inspiration.
Absolutely, so let's shine some light on the good news too.
Tune in every weekday morning to NTD News.
Welcome back. Officials in Texas say over 500 structures were damaged in Wednesday's tornadoes. And in Iowa this week, tornadoes left 5 dead and 35 injured. NTD's Daniel Monahan has the stories from survivors in a small Iowa town.
Officials in Iowa are still assessing damage and continuing search and rescue efforts after the recent storms and tornadoes. Greenfield, Iowa, a town of 2,000, was largely destroyed by a Category EF3 twister. That means winds could have reached up to 165 miles per hour.
I didn't have time to think. I was on the living room there, and I heard, and then all of a sudden, shove. And then I landed down, I don't know how to explain it, in a crunched position flat on the floor, and the chairs were over me. And I had 2 recliners, and they was thrown over me.
Many local residents were rescued by the quick actions of their neighbors before first responders could arrive.
And then I ran out, and we found my neighbor across the street. His house was totally gone. His little kids were there with him. We got him out, and the little kids were good. He had a broken leg. And then we went next door, and we found some other people. And then my next door neighbor was covered up with walls and stuff, and we got him out. But that's the day. And that was like 40 seconds. It's changed my life.
Over 200 homes were destroyed by a series of tornadoes that raked Iowa on Tuesday. That count doesn't include businesses or other buildings like Greenfield's hospital.
It's something like this, you know, it takes time to clean it all up. It's going to be a lot of years before this town gets back to normal. We'll have to plant new trees. I'll be dead and gone before it's all normal.
An emergency was declared in Temple, Texas, after powerful storms ripped through the city of more than 90,000 on Wednesday. A Category EF2 tornado struck the town near Austin. The twister damaged or destroyed hundreds of homes and businesses. No deaths were reported, but dozens were injured.
We had over 500 homes and businesses impacted in some way, shape, or form, from minor roof damage or tree damage to major structural damage, and potentially even destroyed the structure. And we counted over 30 different injuries. Most of those were minor in nature and were either self-transported to the hospital or taken by our local EMS provider.
More severe weather could also hit this weekend in storm-damaged parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Ahead of Memorial Day weekend, the world's busiest airport is already breaking passenger records. TSA posted on social media that agents at Atlanta's International Airport screened more than 33,000 passengers Thursday between midnight and 8 a.m. That breaks a previous early morning record of more than 31,000 passengers in February 2019, when Atlanta hosted the Super Bowl. TSA expects more records to fall this weekend. It anticipated that 105,000 passengers would go through TSA screening all day Thursday and 106,000 all day Friday. Adding layovers, the airport expects to see more than 2.5 million people over the holiday weekend. 2 abortion drugs could soon be reclassified as controlled and dangerous substances in Louisiana, a first-of-its-kind bill that was passed yesterday and is expected to be signed into law by the governor. Supporters of the reclassification of mifepristone and misoprostol say it would protect expectant mothers from coerced abortions. Some doctors, meanwhile, have said it will make it harder for them to prescribe the drugs. Current Louisiana law already requires a prescription for both drugs and makes it a crime to use them for an abortion, in most cases anyways. The bill would make it harder to obtain the pills by placing them on the list of Schedule 4 drugs. The classification would require doctors to have a specific license to prescribe the drugs. The drugs would also have to be stored in specially designated facilities. Arizona medical providers will soon be able to perform abortions in California. Governor Gavin Newsom signed a new bill into law yesterday. Under the new law, Arizona abortion providers in good standing can register to provide abortions on a temporary basis for Arizona-based patients in California. The measure follows an April Arizona Supreme Court decision allowing 160-year-old near-total abortion ban to go into effect in several weeks. Arizona lawmakers have since repealed the ban, but that repeal won't take effect until 90 days after the state legislature adjourns later this year. Due to court orders, including a stay issue by the Arizona Supreme Court, the ban can't be enforced until September 26th at the earliest. And the pressure on Fulton County DA Fani Willis continues. A former staffer for Willis says she was fired for blowing the whistle on plans to misuse funds set aside for at-risk youth. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on yesterday's hearing in the Georgia Senate.
You'll raise your right hands, please.
Amanda Timpson used to work as grant project manager at DA Fani Willis's office until she discovered what she called irregularities in the way federal grant money was going to be used. She said she zoned in on nearly $500,000 that was earmarked to develop strategies to dissuade youth from joining gangs. Timpson said her then supervisor, Michael Cuffey, told her the money was instead going to be used for computers, travel, and swag, including pins, coffee mugs, and t-shirts. Timpson said she pointed out to Cuffey that using the money this way was explicitly prohibited by the administration's rules.
Initially, he let me know that it was the employees in the DA's office call Miss Willis Madam. So he let me know that it was Madam's vision. And I basically said, okay, I understand that, but that's not what the grant says. And as the director of the grant, I wanted to make sure that I was careful and clear what the grant said.
Timpson said she sent an email to Willis in 2021. She said she believes Willis was unaware of what was going on at the time.
I believe 2 or 3 days later, Mr. Cuffey approached me and said that he knew that I reached out to her and that no matter what I did, that she was just going to come back to him.
Timpson also testified to irregularities with the federally funded DA's summer camp called the Junior DA Program. The camp was set up specifically for Fulton County youth.
I noticed that there were youth in the program that were not Fulton County residents, weren't even residents of the state of Georgia.
When she brought this up with Cuffey, she said he directed her to a, quote, professional development plan. She described the plan as a personal attack. Later that year, Timpson said she met with Willis face-to-face and explained how Cuffey planned to use the grant money. Timpson said she recorded the meeting on her phone over fear of retaliation. In the recording obtained by the Washington Free Beacon, Willis can be heard saying, quote, I respect that as your assessment, and I'm not saying that your assessment is wrong. Timpson says Willis then apologized to her, saying Cuffey failed her administration. But less than 2 months later, Timpson says she was terminated from her position. Timpson's testimony was part of the Georgia Senate Special Committee investigating Willis's romantic relationship with prosecutor Nathan Wade. A request for comment on Timpson's allegations sent to the Fulton County DA's office was not returned. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
Meanwhile, Willis is appealing the dismissal of several charges in the case against Trump. She's asking the court to reconsider the 6 charges that were thrown out in March because they lacked required detail. They are part of a 41-count indictment against Trump and his co-defendants for alleged election interference. Trump and 14 other defendants have pleaded not guilty. 4 others reached plea deals with prosecutors. The judge has not said when he may set a date for the trial, but Willis's appeal to reconsider the charges, as well as Trump's appeal to have Willis removed, are likely to delay a potential start. Coming up, the U.S. is encouraging Europe to give Russian money to Ukraine, what Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is discussing in Italy with other G7 nations.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back. Dad! You probably don't remember what you told me.
That was perfect.
But I heard every word.
The glory of piano masterpieces from the Baroque, Classical, and Romantic periods. New Tang Dynasty Television invites you to join the 2024 NTD International Piano Competition. Together, we preserve and revitalize the art of authentic classical piano music. October 14th to the 19th at the Kaufman Music Center in New York City. Apply now at piano.ntdtv.com.
Tangazo hili linahusu njaa. Tarajia kuona watoto wakiwa na njaa katika maeneo haya. Mambo yalikuwa bora kwa miaka mingi. Tuliweza kupigana na njaa na watoto wachache walikufa. Lakini sasa mambo yamebadilika na kwa mabaya zaidi. Hii ni kwa sababu wakati huu ukame umeangamiza zaidi.
Через війни та конфлікти ми мусимо залишати наші домівки і всі наші речі. Ми навіть не маємо їжі. Тому нам потрібна ваша допомога.
Millions of children are fighting to survive due to inequality, conflict, poverty, and the climate crisis. Save the Children is working alongside communities to provide a better life for children. And there's a way you can help. Please call or go online to give just $10 a month, only 33 cents a day. We urgently need 1,000 new monthly donors in the next 30 days to help the children we support around the world. You can help provide food, medicine, care, and protection, plus so much more that a child needs, by calling right now and giving just $10 a month.
Ви можете допомогти голодуючим родинам вижити.
All we need are 1,000 monthly donors in the next 30 days. Please call or go online now with your monthly gift of just $10. Thanks to generous government grants, every dollar you give can have up to 10 times the impact. And when you call with your credit card, we will send you this Save the Children tote bag as a thank you for your support.
Toto kote duniani
потребують вашої допомоги.
Your small monthly donation of just $10 could be the reason a child in crisis survives. Please call or go online to hungerstopsnow.org to help save lives today.
Welcome back. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is still in Italy meeting with finance officials from the Group of Seven. Organizers officially kicked off the two-day meeting today. Yellen is pushing for more ambitious options to unlock Russian funds frozen in Europe and the U.S. Russia's central bank has around $260 billion of frozen assets in those two regions. The U.S. Congress has passed legislation allowing the seizure of Russian assets located in the U.S., but that's only around $5 billion. Most of the funds are in Europe. European officials have stopped short of confiscating the funds and handing them to Ukraine as compensation for Russia's destruction. The finance ministers are working toward a final decision next month. That's when the summit of G7 leaders will take place in southern Italy. Former President Trump held a rally in the Bronx, New York City last night. NTD's Jack Bradley talked to some of the people in this deep blue area about their impression of Trump.
At the end of the day, Donald Trump is just a kid from Queens, so this is his home. He was the king of New York for 30 years, and New York hasn't been very friendly to him, but now I think that a lot of the people are coming out and they're saying that, Donald, you're welcome here anytime.
I think a lot of people support Trump, but the thing is that since it's a very heavily Democratic stronghold, a lot of us have to keep it on the real low. A lot of people here, they can't tell you why they don't support him. They just don't like him. People get on TV, say this is so, and everybody just follows it, and it just really shouldn't be like that.
I live in North Carolina. I drove about 9 hours to be here. I've been to over 40 rallies. We're with the Front Row Joes. We're with the big, fairly big group.
I feel like Joe Biden is pandering to the young people by trying to eliminate their student loan debt so they can vote for him. Me, as an individual who didn't go to college, I still pay taxes. I have to, don't I? And my tax dollars are going to pay for people with college degrees who are getting their student loan debt forgiven.
We're working more hours a week with nothing to show for it. Gas prices are ridiculous. Families are just struggling. Electric is up, heat is up. We can't afford it.
I go to these Trump rallies. This is my 77th rally. I go here because I leave here with some hope. I leave here with hope, but privately at home, too many days go by and I think we're dead already. How do we support this number of illegal aliens? How do we pay off this insane national debt? I believe this country is dying. And sometimes cynically, I feel it may already be dead. I believe, I'm not being hyperbolic. Donald Trump, he was a showman. We know his checkered past, but I believe he was truly sent by God to ensure Abraham Lincoln's promise that a government of the people, by the people, and for the people will not perish from the face of this earth.
Everyone's waking up. They see what's going on. They see what Trump did. And you know what? If Biden wasn't in office, we didn't realize how good Trump did.
There's also a counter protest here in the Bronx. We talked to some of the event organizers. Take a look.
At the end of the day, what you want is your family and your kids and your people around you to do better. And it's really deciding, do you have a better chance of that with Trump in the Oval Office or with Joe Biden? And I think with the experience that we've had with both of them, voters have a real choice. And I think Trump completely mishandled the pandemic, led to a lot of unnecessary deaths, and has a track record of a history of failures behind him. And Joe Biden, I think, has a history of success.
We believe that the Bronx is and represents some of the best that this country has to offer in terms of people, in terms of culture, in terms of community. And the presence of Donald Trump in the Bronx is antithetical to everything the Bronx stands for. And we thought it was important that the real Bronx stand up and espouse our values of diversity, of inclusion, of civil society, of democracy, of basic human decency.
Certainly a mixed bag here in New York City, but definitely one thing's for sure is that Donald Trump has a lot of support coming out of here. Reporting from the Bronx, New York City, Jack Bradley, NTD News.
For more insight on Trump's strategy and the local perception, we have Mike Leon, an NTD News contributor and the Director of Policy and Strategy at the Free and Equal Elections Foundation. Mike, thank you for joining us again. You grew up in the deep blue Bronx, in the exact neighborhood where Trump was campaigning in last night, in fact. How do you read the political strategy behind this?
Chris, good to see you first and foremost. It's taking me back, man. I played as a little kid in Crotona Park. My family grew up on 170th in Crotona Park South. So shout out to the Bronx always. But this is, I started thinking about this yesterday, and for our show, I had a reporter on who's been covering the campaign and the trials of Donald Trump as well, specifically in New York. And one of the sentiments that she gave to me was this was coordinated by the campaign because of the New York trials. Remember, the former president was having the E. Jean Carroll suit, and then obviously the Trump Organization suit. So a lot was happening in the New York area in addition to the Manhattan trial. So the way she laid it out to me was the campaign said, okay, let's make a strategic play here, and let's do a couple of rallies in New York and New Jersey. So that's why you saw the Wildwood, New Jersey one, not too far away from Pennsylvania, which was a swing state. And then obviously the one yesterday in the Bronx. So I think the strategy of the Trump campaign was, let's try to keep him in areas. Yeah, we know it's deep blue. We know the chance of him winning New York and New Jersey are potentially not in play. But there are voter makeups there in those areas where we could have a rally. We can create some long form content from it, create campaign ads off of it. And I think that's the strategy that you're seeing them employ. And it's kind of changed my mind as to why he's done these rallies in these deep blue areas.
Now, as someone who grew up in the South Bronx, tell us about the community's response to Trump holding a rally there and what you personally make of it.
Yeah, I mean, well, the community aspect of it, look, the Bronx is 85 to 90% African Americans and Latinos. There's very few, under 10% of white or Asians in the area. We're always distrusting the Latino community specifically, and African Americans as well, distrusting of politicians on either side of the aisle. There are people that will tell you that they felt that the Obama administration didn't do enough for African Americans, obviously as the first African American president. There are people that tell you that Biden hasn't done much, and obviously they look at consumer goods year over year, and they say, look, we're making less and we're paying more for things, right? So I think Trump visiting the area, while it may bring a good sentiment, one of the things that I was told from people on the ground there was, and the package played it there too. Jack interviewed a couple people that came from out of town to come to the area. So Crotona Park is not the biggest park, Chris. Like it's not the hugest place to have some type of rally. Like the Wildwood one was very open and space wise. So I think he couldn't have as many people potentially as he wanted there. And so I think the sentiment is, it's great to see a former president visiting. And I can't remember the last time Obama or Biden went to a deep blue pocketed area and had some type of rally or event to speak to voters in this type of magnitude. So that is great. But a lot of people always look at it with the side eye, as we like to say, and say, why is another politician coming over here and trying to cater to get our votes? So there's always two ways to kind of look at it.
Okay, so in media interviews with rally-goers, we saw numerous attendees express, I guess you could say, a sense of amazement and delight that a presidential candidate actually visited the South Bronx. You know this community like we're talking about. What do you think this type of acknowledgement by an effective presidential nominee means to them?
Yeah, it was kind of like I was saying. I think it, again, for the Trump campaign, this is what they want, because there is polling that shows Pew Research Center, came out with some recent data that shows the margins that Donald Trump is cutting into the African-American vote and the Latino vote. Now, look, I live here in Miami, right? So the Latino vote down here has increased for Trump from 2016 to 2020. We'll see what it does in 2024. So obviously they're trying to make inroads with both of these communities. And like I mentioned, because of the trial schedule, it's been tough for him to go to some of the battleground states like in Arizona, maybe like in Ohio, and obviously go out there and campaign. So they've done this from a strategic play. I think the members of the community that do appreciate a former president coming in there, there was somebody in the package that played there, Chris, that said, Democrats tend to take, the Black and Latino vote for granted. That's a sentiment that's felt throughout the community all the time. I hear that all the time when I'm talking to voters in focus groups. So I do think, there's two ways to think about it, right? Do you want somebody that at least shows up and tells you what they're going to do for you? Maybe they don't do it for you down the road. Or do you want somebody that never comes to where you are and doesn't even pay attention to you and still expects you to vote for them? And that's the challenge and the question that's going to be raised come November, on the ballot.
Now, what do you think that this rally in the South Bronx means for Democratic voters in this community and people who usually wouldn't even come out to vote in the first place? Is this enough for them to come out and vote for Trump?
I don't know if it is. I mean, you heard in the package that Jack was playing, there was a couple of folks that are aligned with some groups on the Democratic side and assemblymen. Obviously this is in AOC's district, right on the line of her district there. So, and we know the percentage that she won by. Obviously all House seats are up. I don't know if it flips anybody specifically in New York, Chris, when it comes to New York. But I do think for the campaign, like I mentioned, it creates content for them and a long tail effect where they can say, look at what we've done in terms of going out to speak to Hispanic voters, to speak to African-American voters. Remember, Chris, the president also went to Spanish Harlem, to a bodega up there to visit with more voters as the trial was happening in New York. So even though he's been kind of quasi-confined to New York, he's made the most out of it by trying to visit some of these pockets of areas. Whether or not it will sway voters, I mean, the data doesn't show that, but it does show that he's cutting into the margin, which is something he can take out on the road to in Arizona, which has, a third of registered independent voters, a large Latino population. He can take that to other swing states that have a similar makeup to what you're seeing demographics wise at some of these rallies that he's had in these deep blue pockets.
All right, Mike Leon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Chris.
Coming up, 80 soldiers' silhouettes created on a UK beach, marking the upcoming 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings. Footage of the dramatic sand art. And could your used coffee grounds help prevent air pollution? Hear how an Australian university is using them to improve the production of concrete. It says the technology could be used for more than just coffee.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore ShenyunCreations.com.
the shining gem of New England. This delightful seaside city of Newport is one of the most beautiful places in the state. Today, we bring you here as we meet with our friends and fellow musicians from the Hermitage Piano Trio. As a team, they have garnered multiple Grammy Award nominations with their breathtaking performances.
Oh, wow, I did not think this instrument can make that sound, right?
The pandemic made this reunion even more special.
Three of us, we like it because we feel music the same way, so...
Don't miss us on the next episode of Piano Talks.
Imagine a coffee that cares for your health. Expertly fermented with a 50-enzyme complex to enhance flavor and remove bitterness. Small batch roasted to a decadent medium dark, resulting in a brew that is gentle on digestion, low acid, and up to 90% less caffeine than regular coffee. Try America's first enzyme fermented coffee today.
Thank you so much. Fostering a pet for a friend or neighbor can keep families together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
I'm Iris Tao at the White House, and we are NTD.
Thanks for staying with us. As the world marks the 80th anniversary of D-Day on June 6th, ceremonies are honoring the sacrifice of those who fought in the historic World War II invasion. Silhouettes of 80 soldiers were etched on sand on a beach in the town of Broadstairs in southern Britain ahead of the anniversary. Pete Gower is a 72-year-old veteran. He remembered his father, who fought with the Sussex Regiment in Normandy, saying it must have been horrific for him.
When he was on the landing craft, and he's telling me that all the blokes were being, sick over each other because the landing craft was bobbing up and down, and everybody was being sick and all sorts. And then bullets started hitting the landing craft, and the landing craft doors went down, and all the bullets started hitting the men, and it must have been horrific for him. What was going through his mind, I will never know. But it was pretty horrific.
June 6th, 1944, 150,000 Allied soldiers from the United States, Britain, Canada, and other nations invaded France to drive out the forces of Nazi Germany. The operation is considered a turning point in World War II. Next stop, ancient Rome. A new subway line is under construction in Rome's historic center, right under the Colosseum and other major sites. Engineers say the Metro C subway line project has entered a crucial phase after long delays. They are digging a deep retaining wall around the flagship station in the historic center. When completed, the subway line will run underneath some of the world's most important cultural heritage sites: the Colosseum, Trajan's Column, the Roman Forum, and the Vatican.
The station's atrium becomes an underground museum hub that connects the various surrounding monumental complexes: Palazzo Venezia, the Vittoriano, and the archaeological area of the Forums, each with its own dedicated access. All ancient structures will be preserved by removing them to allow the work to progress, and then relocating them inside the station in their original positions along the Via Flaminia. With the new station, the city will benefit from a unique museum complex.
Amazing. The subway line has been in the works for 2 decades, but has been slowed by bureaucratic and funding delays. The work is also delayed because workers must excavate the archaeological ruins underground. The subway project is considered one of the most complicated of its kind in the world. The chief engineer says it's likely to be completed by 2034. Italy's culture ministry has been involved at every step and will be on hand once the digging begins at ancient Roman ruins. Archaeologists will be guiding the excavations as well as taking objects for study and eventually restoring them. Bulgarian farmers are busy harvesting rose petals for their renowned oil this week. Let's take a look.
Welcome to rose oil country. Bulgaria is one of the top producers of the fragrant oil used in various consumable products and in the cosmetics industry. Farmers this week were busy harvesting petals. For 1 gram of rose oil, more than 1,000 petals must be plucked by hand. Farmers have to get to the fields early as the content of essential oil is highest around 7 a.m. Todor Nikolaev is the chief technologist at the Terra Rosa distillery.
In general, it takes about 3 tons of rose flowers to produce 1 kilogram of rose oil. This year, it was a little better, and the results are significantly more favorable for the producers.
Nikolaev says the right combination of heat and humidity is crucial for the quality of the petals and oil. Historians say the flowers have been cultivated as crops since the 5th to 3rd century BC, with the first oil factory opening in 1820.
Can used coffee grounds make concrete stronger and more sustainable? Australian researchers are turning used coffee grounds into a material that can be added to concrete.
Your morning cup of coffee could help the planet. That's the promise of one Australian university that's transforming used coffee grounds into more sustainable concrete. The researchers at RMIT University are heating the coffee grounds to over 650 degrees Fahrenheit in an oxygen-free chamber to create a substance called biochar. They claim biochar can replace up to 15% of the sand used in concrete and make it 30% stronger.
We can leverage that to even reduce the cement content, which is a highly carbon-intensive material.
Rajiv Roychand is the lead researcher.
We anticipate that the whole 100% of coffee waste in Australia can be recycled into concrete applications.
Concrete production is responsible for around 7% of the world's CO2 emissions, according to the United Nations. Over 55 billion tons of sand and gravel are dug up each year, mostly for use in concrete. Its extraction is often environmentally destructive, and the UN says it's in increasingly short supply. This footpath was successfully made with coffee concrete. The researchers here are working with several construction and concrete companies and forming their own biochar company. They're also in talks with Starbucks to take its coffee grounds. Local coffee shop owner Tony Roussos says he would get in on the action too.
Fantastic. It's a very innovative idea, bring the cost of concrete down. And the materials, obviously there's a benefit to the environment for not using harsh chemicals and replacing it with coffee grounds as a natural product, easy to access. A lot of cafes could sell their coffee grounds, so end to end it's a great solution.
Roychand says that eventually the technology could be used for more than just coffee.
In terms of real world, our focus is that we try to transform all of the organic waste that is ending up in landfills for this positive application in concrete. So we anticipate that about 60 to 70% we can divert from landfills into concrete applications.
2 astronauts from the European Space Agency's latest class have been assigned their inaugural space missions. They are slated for journeys to the International Space Station in 2026. Let's hear what they have to say.
Sophia Adenau and Raphael Liachois are set to become the first 2 astronauts from the European Space Agency astronaut class of 2022. They are scheduled to embark on long-duration missions to the International Space Station. Born in France, 41-year-old Adenau is an Air Force helicopter test pilot.
It's incredible. I'm really lacking words to describe how happy I am. But yes, it's going to be a great adventure starting now. 2 years of a lot of intense training, a lot of modules to qualify, a lot of new scientific experiments to learn. And yes, it's going to be dense and intense, I know already, but I'm ready for that.
Born in Belgium, 36-year-old Leah Schwa is a biomedical engineer and neuroscientist. He also flies hot air balloons and gliders.
I feel great. We just had the news of the assignments and I'm super excited. It's a new step in this incredible adventure. It comes a bit earlier than what I was expecting, to be honest, but no, it's great.
Before his journey to space, there are still many challenges ahead.
If everything goes as planned, I will be flying in 2026, full 2026. And concretely, that means moving to Houston and having a specific training there in Houston to prepare the mission.
The European Space Agency has negotiated with NASA for 3 places on future Artemis moon missions. The agency is also supplying the service module for the Orion crew capsule. The ESA relies on NASA and others to get its astronauts to space. The agency says it intends for all 5 of its recent graduates to embark on missions to the International Space Station by 2030. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
For round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. And stay with us, we'll bring you more news in the next 2 hours.
Presenting the heritage of traditional Chinese martial arts, fostering martial ethics, and reviving the true tradition. Preliminaries of the 2024 NTD International Traditional Chinese Martial Arts Competition will be held across Germany, Taiwan, and New York. The grand finals will be broadcast live online worldwide in September 2024. For more information, please call 1-888-477-9228.
Does shopping for bladder control products have you feeling like you need someone to be on the lookout for you? Now you have your privacy back. We're HDIS, and we home deliver bladder control products directly to you. We're always on the lookout for you. You get free shipping in plain, unmarked boxes. So your private matters stay private. We understand how you feel. For over 35 years, we've delivered bladder control products to millions of Americans, just like you. You don't have to worry about incontinence any longer. Call now for your free product sample pack and over $45 in money-saving coupons. At HDIS, we're always in stock. We carry all brands in hundreds of styles and sizes. You'll be sure to get what you need, guaranteed.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog and $45 in money-saving coupons and free product samples, call 800-701-6159. That's 800-701-6159.
The Chinese Communist Party is exposing its hand. The fingerprints can be found all over. And I recently caught wind of these CCP operations on full display in South Korea. The top 13 theaters all rejected Shen Yun almost simultaneously. What makes the case in South Korea so different? And how does the CCP extend its influence into other countries? Now, for the Chinese Communist Party, this is warfare. War being waged here isn't being done through tanks and bombs, but instead through the invisible forces of culture and ideology. They also revealed a hidden war.
If you're buzzed and doing this, to make yourself feel okay to drive,
ZWX.
You're not okay to drive.
YGKLVW. Regular you.
Welcome to NTD News Today. Here are today's top stories. We're closing in on the presidential race, and former President Trump's criminal cases are still top news. We'll look at all 4 of them and the overall state of his legal saga. The top UN court rules on Israel's military operations in Rafah. Hear more from the court and how Israel will likely respond. Hundreds of Harvard students walk out of a graduation, strikes on California campuses. Latest on anti-Israel protests. A landmark settlement that will change the face of college sports. Athletes could start receiving pay as soon as 2025. The host of NTD's Business Matters has more on the $2.8 billion agreement in the NCAA antitrust case. The heaviest day of Memorial Day weekend travel begins. The large number of travelers is expected to cause massive delays for those traveling by road and air. And the Eternal Flame arrives in New York City after traveling across the Atlantic. A group of young French ambassadors escort the flame ahead of the 80th anniversary of D-Day.
This is NTD News Today, live from our NTD Global Headquarters. Here are Stephania Cox and Chris Beers.
Thank you for joining us. Stephania will be back next week. Breaking news about the conflict in the Middle East. The top United Nations court is ordering Israel to halt its military operations against Hamas terrorists in the city of Rafah.
The court considers that, in conformity with the obligations under the Genocide Convention, Israel must immediately halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah governorate which may inflict on the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life that could bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part.
In its ruling, the International Court of Justice said the humanitarian situation in Rafah is disastrous, but stopped short of ordering a full ceasefire throughout Gaza. South Africa brought the case before the UN court and requested a ceasefire. Israel is unlikely to comply with the order. Ahead of the ruling, the Israel government said, quote, "No power on earth will stop Israel from protecting its citizens and going after Hamas in Gaza." The UN Security Council is also scheduled to vote later today on a resolution that strongly condemns attacks on humanitarian workers and UN personnel. This comes as the agency resumes transporting aid to Gaza from the temporary pier built by the U.S. And the Israeli military said it recovered from Gaza the bodies of 3 hostages killed on October 7th. And thousands attend former President Trump's rally last night right here in New York City. He aims to win over voters in the blue state who are frustrated with issues like the economy and illegal immigration. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao was in the South Bronx.
Right here in the Bronx. Who would think? Who would think?
This is former President Trump's first rally in New York in about 8 years. And this is one of the bluest areas of a blue state that hasn't voted for a Republican presidential candidate in over 4 decades. But Trump says he has a chance.
Who said we're not going to win New York? We're going to win New York. So.
And Trump appealing to New Yorkers on the issue of the economy.
We're going to bring businesses and big taxpayers back to New York.
Crime.
We're going to bring safety back to our street.
Immigration.
You don't have public spaces. They're occupied by migrants in tents.
And even New York's public transit system.
We're going to renovate New York's subway system so it no longer looks like it hasn't been cleaned since 1932.
And Trump blaming all these problems on President Biden.
He's not getting the job done.
The South Bronx is also a neighborhood that's over 60% Hispanic and over 30% Black. Recent polls are showing that these voters are turning to Trump over the issue of the economy, although they traditionally vote for Democrats. President Biden ramping up his outreach to Black and Hispanic voters in recent weeks.
It's not about me, it's about the alternative. as well.
And launching a new ad on Thursday targeting voters right here in New York.
Donald Trump disrespecting black folk is nothing new. He was sued for refusing to rent his apartments to black families and called for the execution of 5 innocent black and brown teenagers.
But Trump seeking to win over these minorities.
It doesn't matter whether you're black or brown or white or whatever the hell color you are, it doesn't matter. We are all Americans, and we're going to pull together as Americans.
And now a big thing to watch for will be how President Biden's campaign responds to Trump's activities right here in New York. Specifically, it remains to be seen whether Biden's campaign will be forced to divert more resources to focus on traditionally blue strongholds like here in New York, states that former President Trump is now trying to flip. Reporting from South Bronx, Iris Howe, NTD News.
And with the election just 24 weeks away, where do former President Trump's 4 criminal cases stand today? Here to discuss is former federal prosecutor Zach Smith. Zach is also a legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Good to have you with us, Zach. Let's start with Trump's New York criminal trial. It's on everyone's mind as the jury might reach a verdict as soon as next week. What way do you think it will go and why?
Well, look, I think we have to be honest. Donald Trump is facing a very unfavorable jury there in Manhattan. If you'd asked me at the beginning of the trial, I thought there was a high likelihood that he may be convicted just because of the unfavorable jury pool he's facing. But after listening to the past 6 weeks of testimony, particularly the testimony of Michael Cohen, which really is the linchpin of the prosecution's case to elevate these misdemeanor bookkeeping charges into felony offenses, things did not go well for Alvin Bragg and the prosecution. Not only is Michael Cohen an admitted perjurer, not only did he admit to stealing from Donald Trump and the Trump organization on the stand, but he endured an absolutely brutal cross-examination from Donald Trump's lawyers. And so going into next week on Tuesday, we'll hear closing arguments, both from the prosecution and from the defense. We'll see the judge charge the jury, tell them what the applicable law is, and then it'll be up to those 12 Manhattan jurors to decide whether or not to convict Donald Trump on the charges that rogue prosecutor Alvin Bragg has brought against him.
And of course, we'll be following this unprecedented trial very carefully. Let's move on to the next case. District Attorney Fani Willis has appealed Judge Scott McAfee's decision to drop 6 of the charges in Trump's election interference case in Georgia. Tell us about that and how the appeal is likely to go, Zach.
Well, keep in mind, Donald Trump and several of the other defendants in that case were asking to have Fani Willis and her entire office recused from the prosecution because of conflicts of interest, particularly pertaining to her payment of her alleged paramour, Nathan Wade. The judge in that case said either the entire office could be recused from the case or Nathan Wade could essentially cease working on the case. And so, of course, Fani Willis's office essentially decided to have Nathan Wade no longer participate. The defendants in that case are appealing that decision. Fani Willis, as you mentioned, is also appealing the judge's decision to dismiss several of the charges in that case. And so I suspect we're going to see a lot playing out over the next coming months in the Georgia election case. I doubt we'll have a resolution to these issues before the election in November, but this will certainly be something that's very interesting and worth watching in the next several months.
And moving on to the classified documents case, it's suspended indefinitely as Judge Aileen Cannon sorts through its complexities. She's talking about all these different issues. Is this one going anywhere before the election in November?
No, it's not. And I doubt, frankly, any of these cases are going anywhere because the fourth case is the one in D.C. Related to the aftermath of the events of the 2020 election. Of course, the holdup right now in the D.C. prosecution that's being brought by Jack Smith is we're waiting on a ruling from the United States Supreme Court to determine whether or not Donald Trump enjoys immunity from prosecution. Keep in mind, it's long been established that presidents enjoy civil immunity. They can't be subjected to civil lawsuits for actions they took while in office. And so Donald Trump is asking the Supreme Court to essentially extend that doctrine and prohibit criminal prosecution for official acts that were taken in office. And so we're waiting on the Supreme Court to release its decision, that immunity case, to see what that immunity decision will look like and whether it will have to be sent back to the lower federal courts for factual determinations to determine what actions in the wake of 2020 were private actions versus official actions that Donald Trump took as president of the United States.
Okay, so we've touched on all 4 of these criminal cases. Let's zoom out a little bit. Given all these cases, what will Trump's calendar look like on a weekly basis between now and the election?
Well, I suspect a lot of his time is going to be spent in courtrooms. We've certainly seen that in New York. I think that's part of the problem with many of these cases. While Donald Trump is sitting in courtrooms in New York or in other locations, he's not able to be on the campaign trail, engaging in the normal activities that we would expect a presidential candidate to engage in. I think Donald Trump and his campaign have been very effective at making lemonade out of lemons in some sense. We see him talking to the media after nearly every court hearing. Obviously, he's holding rallies in Bronx in the New York there, close to where his criminal trial is taking place. But look, the fact is, this is an unprecedented situation. Never before have we had a former president prosecuted, and never before have we had a leading candidate for the presidency to be facing this many criminal prosecutions. And so we'll have to wait and see again how this plays out. But I do think a lot of his time will be devoted to these criminal matters.
And looking at these cases together from a 30,000-foot view, what's your read on the state of Trump's overall strategic position legally? What kind of condition is it in?
Sure. Well, I think obviously Jack Smith in particular, and Fani Willis and Alvin Bragg wanted to bring these cases to trial before the election. I think that was very obvious. Jack Smith was kind of circumventing normal procedures in some instances, trying to move these cases along very quickly. Obviously, Donald Trump and his supporters do not want these cases to go to trial before the election. I think Donald Trump, like any criminal defendant, is certainly entitled to avail himself of all due process procedures available. Keep in mind, many of the legal issues being presented in these cases are very novel, which means they'll likely take more time to discuss, research, and resolve. The documents involved in many of these cases are voluminous. Not only are there voluminous a volume of documents, many are also subject to classified restrictions, which means they have to be handled in special ways, which means the lawyers, both on the prosecution side and on the defense side, and the judge and court staff handling these documents have to have appropriate clearances. And so these cases necessarily, it's very difficult for them to move quickly. And yet we've seen a big push by government lawyers to try to get them to move quickly. And I think many people are troubled by not only the appearance of a double standard of justice being applied against Donald Trump and his supporters, but also what looks like an effort to really circumvent the normal criminal justice process in order to move these cases along quickly before the upcoming election.
All right, Zach Smith, legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Thank you so much for your time today.
Of course. Thank you for having me on.
Next, attorneys for Hunter Biden are due in court today. It's the final hearing before the first son is expected to stand trial on federal firearms charges in Delaware. Hunter Biden is charged with lying about his drug use in October 2018 on a form to buy a gun. He has acknowledged an addiction to crack cocaine during that period, but his lawyers have said he didn't break the law and the case is politically motivated. The president's son is also facing federal tax charges in Los Angeles. Trial in that case is set for September. He's accused of failing to pay nearly $1.5 million in taxes over a 4-year period. The back taxes have since been paid. The case of AI-generated robocalls mimicking President Biden's voice is back in the news. A political consultant faces a $6 million fine and over 24 criminal charges for sending the calls before New Hampshire's primary. Stephen Kramer admitted to orchestrating the message, which used an AI-generated Biden voice saying, "What a bunch of malarkey." The message falsely claimed voting in the primary would prohibit voting in November. Kramer says his goal was to highlight the potential dangers of artificial intelligence. Coming up, severe weather continues across the U.S. that could disrupt holiday travel. Amazing survivor and rescue stories are emerging in the aftermath of the devastating Greenfield, Iowa tornado. And Memorial Day weekend travel begins with abundant travelers and massive delays expected. More in just a moment here on NTD News Today.
Got a new house, place that I call home.
The highest art is beautiful, breathtaking, timeless, and moving. Experience art with 5,000 years of history, inspired by the divine. Experience Shen-Yun.
Do you know that Cars for Compassion is the best way to donate your car? Through this non-profit program, you can not only help us keep bringing the world independent and daringly truthful journalism, but also significantly impact the life of somebody who needs a vehicle. The Epoch Times fights misinformation and big tech censorship by being independent and unbound to advertisers. Every single contribution to Cars for Compassion is a powerful endorsement of our unwavering mission. All you have to do is go to carsforcompassion.org and let us know about your car, and we'll schedule a pickup time and email you a tax-deductible receipt. To do this, just click the link below, support truth, compassion, and hope. Donate your car right now at www.carsforcompassion.org.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains unmoved.
Join us on NTD Good Morning because we want you to stay informed.
Kickstart your morning with the latest you missed overnight.
Right, and don't forget that inspiration.
Absolutely, so let's shine some light on the good news too.
Tune in every weekday morning to NTD News.
Thank you for staying with us. 2 abortion drugs could soon be reclassified as controlled and dangerous substances in Louisiana. A first-of-its-kind bill that was passed yesterday and is expected to be signed into law by the governor. Supporters of the reclassification of mifepristone and misoprostol say it would protect expectant mothers from coerced abortions. Some doctors, meanwhile, have said it will make it harder for them to prescribe the drugs. Current Louisiana law already requires a prescription for both drugs and makes it a crime to use them for an abortion in most cases. The bill would make it harder to obtain the pills by placing them on the list of Schedule 4 drugs. The classification would require doctors to have a specific license to prescribe the drugs. The drugs would also have to be stored in specially designated facilities. Arizona medical providers will soon be able to perform abortions in California. Governor Gavin Newsom signed a new bill into law yesterday. Under the law, Arizona abortion providers can register to provide abortions on a temporary basis for Arizona-based patients in California. The measure follows an April Arizona Supreme Court decision allowing a 160-year-old near-total abortion ban to go into effect in several weeks. Arizona lawmakers have since repealed the ban, but that repeal won't take effect until 90 days after the state legislature adjourns later this year. Due to court orders, including a stay issued by the Arizona Supreme Court, the ban can't be enforced until September 26th at the earliest. The Republican National Committee is set to hold their convention at Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee in July. However, the RNC has been at odds with the city and the U.S. Secret Service over where to place protesters outside the convention. The RNC first publicly raised concerns to the agency over the proximity of planned protest zones last month. The GOP wants protesters in a designated area several streets away from the path of convention delegates and other attendees. Now, the party has accused Secret Service of ignoring safety concerns. The Secret Service says the host city is responsible for establishing protest zones, not the agency. The agency says it's confident in the security plan being developed, and the Secret Service claims publicly disclosing security information undermines efforts to keep the event safe. And the Supreme Court has ruled in favor of the federal government on how sentences should be imposed on convicted felons or drug offenders found guilty of possessing firearms. Under federal law, a felon who has 3 or more prior convictions for serious drug offenses or violent crimes would face a minimum of 15 years in prison. A serious drug offense carries a sentence of at least 10 years and must involve a controlled substance, but some defendants argue that frequent changes in drug laws could unfairly trigger the law if there's a long gap between drug and firearms convictions. Justice Samuel Alito wrote the 2 cases before the court, asked if a crime constitutes a serious drug offense if the substance involved was later decriminalized. In the court's majority opinion, it did. The Supreme Court is currently deliberating another case under the same law. A ruling is expected in June. The items you buy at a discount on Amazon could be stolen goods. Persistent problems with organized crime rings are pushing retailers to fight back. And CNN report found that retail crime rings use low-level thieves to clear hundreds of thousands of dollars in merchandise from store shelves. Products are then sold to unsuspecting customers hunting for deals on sites like Amazon and eBay. Many retailers are now devoting more staff and financial resources to try to short-circuit theft. More of them are working on their own to deliver most of the evidence authorities need to prosecute the crimes. Some have invested in police-like investigation centers to sift through data and pinpoint thieves who belong to crime rings. Others are researching body-worn cameras for employees or installing license plate readers in their parking lots. But some of these measures have been met with resistance over privacy concerns. For example, drugstore chain Rite Aid agreed to a 5-year ban on facial recognition technology. That came after the Federal Trade Commission found it led to false shoplifting allegations against customers. And federal law enforcement officials in California squashed a quash-filled drug shipment Monday night. Close to 6 tons of meth was hidden inside more than 1,400 squash packages, according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Officials there say the undercover shipment was discovered in a commercial tractor-trailer at the Otay Mesa port in San Diego. CBP says they found more than 11,000 pounds of meth worth around $18 million. The drugs and vehicles were seized while the driver, who did have a border crossing card, was handed over to Homeland Security. Since October 2023, CBP says it has seized more than 12,000 illegal drug shipments at border checkpoints. And officials in Texas say over 500 structures were damaged in Wednesday's tornadoes. And in Iowa this week, tornadoes left 5 dead and 35 injured. NTD's Daniel Monahan has the stories from survivors in a small Iowa town.
Officials in Iowa are still assessing damage and continuing search and rescue efforts after the recent storms and tornadoes. Greenfield, Iowa, a town of 2,000, was largely destroyed by a Category EF3 twister. That means winds could have reached up to 165 miles per hour.
I didn't have time to think. I was on the living room there, and I heard, and then all of a sudden, shove. And then I landed down, I don't know how to explain it. in a crunched position flat on the floor, and the chairs were over me. And I had 2 recliners, and they was thrown over me.
Many local residents were rescued by the quick actions of their neighbors before first responders could arrive.
And then I ran out, and we found my neighbor across the street. His house was totally gone. His little kids were there with him. We got him out, and the little kids were good. He had a broken leg. And then we went next door, and we found some other people. And then my next door neighbor was covered up with walls and stuff, and we got him out. But that's the day. And that was like 40 seconds. It's changed my life.
Over 200 homes were destroyed by a series of tornadoes that raked Iowa on Tuesday. That count doesn't include businesses or other buildings like Greenfield's Hospital.
It's something like this, you know, it takes time to clean it all up. It's going to be a lot of years before this town gets back to normal. We'll have to plant new trees. I'll be dead and gone before it's all normal.
An emergency was declared in Temple, Texas, after powerful storms ripped through the city of more than 90,000 on Wednesday. A Category EF2 tornado struck the town near Austin. The twister damaged or destroyed hundreds of homes and businesses. No deaths were reported, but dozens were injured.
We had over 500 homes and businesses impacted in some way, shape, or form, from minor roof damage or tree damage to major structural damage and potentially even destroyed the structure. And we counted over 30 different injuries. Most of those were minor in nature and were either self-transported to the hospital or taken by our local EMS provider.
More severe weather could also hit this weekend in storm-damaged parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The Eternal Flame has just arrived in New York City after traveling across the Atlantic Ocean. A group of young French ambassadors escorted the flame ahead of the 80th anniversary of D-Day. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more from a few of the men who fought in Normandy on that pivotal June morning.
The Queen Mary II has arrived in the Big Apple for a commemorative ceremony honoring the upcoming 80th anniversary of D-Day. World War II veteran Donald Cobb served in the U.S. Navy during the invasion of Normandy.
We went in at 5:30 in the morning, and it was cold, and the water was choppy, and I was freezing, and nervous, and I'm sure a little scared, but we had known about it for a little while, and so I had time to adjust.
The Eternal Flame has been burning at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier under the Arc de Triomphe in Paris since November 11, 1923. At the New York City ceremony, 104-year-old veteran and D-Day survivor Stephen Melnikoff remembers the battle well.
On that particular day, with the 1st Division and 29th Division, 5,720 casualties in those 2 divisions. And so there was a very, very bad day, and we were fortunate that they survived.
The young French ambassadors will next escort the flame to Arlington Cemetery. It will burn until June 6th to mark the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings along the Normandy coast.
I'm glad it happened. It was my great generation. It was the greatest generation, and it was the young people, like the ones that are on this French Olympic team. So many were 18, 19 years old. I was old. I was actually 23 years old when I was drafted.
More than 9,000 Americans who lost their lives in World War II, primarily in the Normandy landings and the following operations, are buried at the Normandy American Cemetery in Colville-sur-Mer, France. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Travelers are beginning to head out for the Memorial Day weekend, and heavy delays are expected. Some are already stuck in traffic or at the airport. Highways and airports are likely to be jammed the next few days. AAA predicts this will be the busiest start of summer weekend in nearly 20 years, with over 43 million people expected to travel at least 50 miles from home between Thursday and Monday.
Well, it's pretty fun, but you have to leave on time because there's a lot of traffic. And make sure you check your flight status because there are a lot of flight delays. I'm realizing we're delayed for 2 hours? Make sure you have water. Make sure that you have travel buddies, because that helps, when you're traveling during the delay. Well, I don't know why we're delayed, but someone told me that they were delayed yesterday, so maybe it's a ripple effect, but I'm not sure. But yeah, it's quite inconveniencing.
The TSA says up to 3 million people might pass through airport checkpoints today alone. Government figures show airfares down 6% and hotel rates down 0.4% compared with a year ago. Prices for renting a car or truck are down 10%, but AAA says the nationwide price of gas has risen about 6 cents from a year ago. Most travelers are expected to travel by car. Coming up, a change of guard at one of America's top banks. James Gorman will step down as chairman of Morgan Stanley at the end of the year. More on his succession plans. And Honda is giving away free gas across Los Angeles on Memorial Day weekend. If you're a military member, we'll tell you how you can get it after the break.
Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome. Prediabetes does. With early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test today. Go to doihaveprediabetes.org.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
When I drink it, the first thing was I feel the warmth in my tummy. It's kind of like gently radiating out, a kind of a very comforting warmth. And it was really good, actually. I felt much better. I did feel actually an effect, and I find that it is actually better when I take it regularly.
It's actually steamed and dried 9 times, and so it's really, the essence is really extracted.
Then the second time I tried it really like on an empty stomach, and just 2 teaspoons of it, and over a few times. And wow, that was a big difference, because suddenly I could feel, wow, I was very good energized. I didn't have to eat. I could work outside in the garden for a couple of hours, and I still felt very well. And I was impressed by that. So I think it's a good product.
The shining gem of New England. This delightful seaside city of Newport is one of the most beautiful places in the state. Today, we bring you here as we meet with our friends and fellow musicians from the Hermitage Piano Trio. As a team, they have garnered multiple Grammy Award nominations with their breathtaking performances.
Oh, wow, I did not think this instrument can make that sound, right?
The pandemic made this reunion even more special.
3 of us, we like it because we feel music the same way, so...
Don't miss us on the next episode of Piano Talks.
We're in the nation's capital asking the important questions so that you're in the know. Join us daily, Monday through Friday, on the Capitol Report on NTD News.
Aerospace giant Boeing is on track to meet the Federal Aviation Administration's deadline. That's for presenting quality control fixes for its assembly line. On Thursday, the embattled plane manufacturer said it will present its plan next week. The FAA ordered the plan in late February after a hole blew open in the side of an airborne 737 MAX plane. The agency said its audit of the production line at Boeing and its key 737 MAX supplier found multiple alleged failures to comply with manufacturing quality control requirements. The FAA gave Boeing 90 days to present a plan, and that deadline is next week. Next, a changing of the guard at a top U.S. bank. Morgan Stanley's executive chairman, James Gorman, plans to step down at year's end. In his nearly two-decade run at the bank, he's transformed it into a wealth management powerhouse.
Gorman, who's 65, had served as the bank's CEO for 14 years before taking the chairman role in January. Speaking at Morgan Stanley's shareholder meeting on Thursday, Gorman cited the successful transition of his successor Ted Pick into the CEO role earlier this year. In laying out his succession plans, Gorman also achieved a rare feat, convincing two executives passed over for the chief executive role, Andy Saperstein and Dan Simkowitz, to stay with the bank. The announcement of Gorman's departure comes just days after J.P. Morgan's CEO Jamie Dimon told investors his bank's succession plans were underway. Dimon, who's 68, has helmed J.P. Morgan for more than 18 years, outlasting many other industry chiefs. Both Gorman and Dimon piloted their institutions through the 2008 financial crisis that saw rivals go bankrupt or be swallowed by other banks. In prior years, Dimon answered questions about his succession plans by saying he would stay 5 more years. But on Monday, Dimon said J.P. Morgan was moving people around in preparation for his departure, adding, quote, "The timetable is not 5 years anymore."
Joining us now is NTD Business Matters host Don Ma to give us the latest from the tech world and the business world. Don, good to have you. Tell us what's happening out there in the business world today.
All right, it's good to be here on Steph's seat. So this is what it feels like being here. All right, let me start off with NCAA. And the 5 biggest conferences have agreed to settle a spate of antitrust claims, and as well as paying almost $2.8 billion. And the announcement yesterday is a landmark decision that potentially will change the face of college sports. So a revenue sharing model that would pay money directly to students could start as soon as the fall semester in 2025. And the deal still needs to be approved, by the way, by the federal judge in the case. But if it holds up, there will be college sports where athletes are paid like professionals and schools can vie for talent using direct payments. And there are a host of details still to be determined, but the agreement calls for the NCAA and the conferences to pay $2.77 billion over 10 years to more than 14,000 former and current college students, student college athletes. And they say now defunct rules prevented them from earning money from endorsement and sponsorship deals dating to 2016.
Man, I just think about a bunch of college students with a ton of cash. And I don't know, when I was in college students didn't do great things with money all the time. So
well, they'll have unlimited supplies of instant noodles. Yeah. with all that money. Yeah, I mean, it would be great to be a college student. Right. With all that money and unlimited noodles.
Walking out of college with a lot of money. What else is going on out there, Don?
Yeah, so like you mentioned before the break, Southern California Honda dealers will honor local veterans by giving away free gas over Memorial Day weekend. So some Honda employees will be pumping free gasoline for veterans and active and retired military personnel and Honda drivers. This is their way of sort of saying thank you to them on Memorial Day. Veterans and active military personnel don't need to drive a Honda per se to qualify, but they do need to show a valid ID, and Honda said it will pump $15,000 worth of fuel at gas stations in Burbank, Culver City, and Huntington Beach. The helpful Honda people will be surprising the first 100 drivers who qualify at each location.
All right, it's a good day to be a veteran.
Yep, yes, it is.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you.
Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is still in Italy meeting with G7 finance officials. Organizers officially kicked off the two-day meeting today. Yellen is pushing for more ambitious options to unlock Russian funds frozen in Europe and the U.S. Russia's central bank has around $260 billion of frozen assets in those two regions. The U.S. Congress has passed legislation allowing the seizure of Russian assets located in the U.S., but that's only around $5 billion. Most of the funds are in Europe. European officials have stopped short of confiscating the funds and handing them to Ukraine as compensation for Russia's destruction. The finance ministers are working toward a final decision next month. That's when the summit of G7 leaders will take place in southern Italy. When we come back, Chinese war games around Taiwan continue for a second day. The Chinese regime says the joint drills aim to test its ability to seize and occupy the democratically ruled island. And the U.S. and its allies are calling for Taiwan to be included in an important meeting of the World Health Organization next week. The Chinese regime has blocked the island from participating in such international events for years. More shortly here on NTD News Today.
Hi, I'm Tim Che, the director and writer of The Firing Squad. You can participate in our Million Souls campaign, inviting everyone you know to Jesus. Listen, we all face some kind of firing squad in our lives, and yet faith in the Lord, that challenge can lead us to true peace in this insane world. We can't do it without you. We're competing with big Hollywood movies, so we're relying on your voice to spread the word. Thank you again for supporting this important movie.
This is it, the culmination of everything our young athlete has worked for these past months. He's filled with determination. You can see it in his face. Is today the day he overcomes? And here we go. There is no defense in the world that will keep him at bay. He's on fire. Nothing can stop him. Watch him as he heads towards the goal. Oh, he's blocked hard, but that doesn't stop him. He's a warrior. He's back up. His eyes are on the goal. He's set up for the shot. He shoots. Goal!
Achieving goals like this is only possible with the monthly support of people just like you.
Please call the number on your screen right now and give your monthly support to Shriners Hospitals for Children so other children can reach their goals too.
If you give just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day, we will send you your very own Love to the Rescue blanket as a reminder of the love you're giving us. Because of monthly support of people like you, nothing is stopping me from achieving my goals.
And here we go. There is no defense in the world that will keep him at bay. He's going left. Oh, he fakes right and continues. Look at those moves. He takes the shot. Goal! Please call or go online now. If operators are busy, call again or go to loveshriners.org to give right away. Your monthly gift helps kids achieve their goals. Goal!
Want to know what's really happening around the world? Join us for a deep dive discussion with our expert panel on International Reporters Roundtable.
Just 6 weeks until Britain's next general election, and politicians have kicked off their campaigns. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak started his campaign in Derbyshire and said he could be trusted to bring economic stability, while Sir Keir Starmer began his day in Kent, a traditional Conservative heartland. It comes after the Prime Minister fired the starting gun for the summer election in the soaking rain.
The countdown begins to July 4th. Rishi Sunak, visiting a distribution centre in Derbyshire, says the Conservative Party would offer economic stability.
You know you can trust me when it comes to the economy. I got our country through COVID, right? And that's because I was prepared to do some bold things. And then I was prepared to do some difficult things, right? I'm not going to pretend that we didn't have to spend a lot of money during COVID and to help everyone with energy bills. And it's reasonable that we have to pay that money back.
Then in Wales, he toured a brewery. He told staff he was keen to support their industry, mentioned the Brexit pubs guarantee and support with business rates. He then asked if the staff were looking forward to the football later in the summer, despite Wales not qualifying for the Euro 2024 tournament. The Rwanda deportation plan is also at the top of the agenda, with Sunak saying flights won't take off before the election.
Keir Starmer.
In Kent, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer accused Sunak of not believing the Rwanda plan would work because flights won't take off until after the election. He told voters the election is a chance to rebuild Britain.
But look, at long last, the election has been called. The time has come and the wait is over. And that means, through the power of our democracy, the voters now get to choose. The power of the vote, the power each and every one of you has to change our country, our community, and your future for the better. So whether you're a family that's been is for you, because you now have the power, the chance to end the chaos, to turn the page, and to rebuild Britain.
Speaking from Cheltenham, Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey vowed his party would win seats from the Conservatives. Reform UK leader Richard Tice staged a press conference saying there'll be zero NHS waiting lists and that immigration should be frozen. Earlier in the morning, Nigel Farage said he won't be standing. Meanwhile, Parliament is rushing through bills, with the King approving to dissolve Parliament on the 30th of May. The formal end of this session of Parliament will be this Friday. The Rail Minister, Hugh Merriman, and a Work and Pensions Minister, Joe Churchill, announced they will leave Parliament for this election. The deadline to register to vote in the general election is the 18th of June, and the deadline to apply for a postal vote is on the 19th of June.
More than 100 people are believed to be dead after a landslide buried a village in remote, mountainous part of Papua New Guinea. An emergency response is underway. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation reported that the landslide hit the area at roughly 3 a.m. Residents said the number of people killed could be much higher. Australia, a neighbor and Papua New Guinea's most generous provider of foreign aid, said it's ready to help. Videos and social media showed residents pulling out bodies buried under rocks and trees. The landslide also blocked the road, raising concerns about the town's fuel supply. With 10 million people, Papua New Guinea is the most populous South Pacific nation after Australia. China's military is on its second day of war games around Taiwan today. The Chinese regime says the drills are a test of its ability to seize and control key areas. It also says the exercises are punishment for the inauguration speech of Taiwan's new president. The drills started just 3 days after William Lai took office. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has reactions to China's war games.
The Chinese regime on Friday said it was continuing war games around Taiwan as a test of its ability to seize power, launch joint attacks, and occupy key areas. The CCP drills, dubbed Joint Sword 2024A, started just after Taiwan swore in a new president this week. The Chinese military on social media Friday posted an animated video of missiles being launched at Taiwan with major cities in flame. Taiwan's defense ministry released images of its armed F-16s. It says were mobilized to monitor and shadow China's forces. It also put up pictures of CCP Coast Guard and naval vessels taking part in the drills. Taiwan says it detected 49 Chinese military aircraft, along with 19 Navy and 7 Coast Guard ships as of 6 a.m. Friday. The Defense Ministry says around half of the aircraft crossed the Taiwan Straits median line. The CCP says it doesn't recognize the unofficial border. An international group of 250 lawmakers from the US, UK, France, and other countries called for condemnation of the drills and a shared commitment to maintaining the status quo. The European Union urged restraint, saying tensions in the Taiwan Strait should be resolved through dialogue. The EU called for both sides to preserve the status quo. The US and several allies, including Canada, Australia, Japan, and the UK, are calling for Taiwan to be invited to a key WHO meeting this month. China's objections exclude Taiwan from most international organizations. The Chinese regime considers Taiwan part of its territory, despite never having ruled the island. A joint statement by the US and allies Friday called Taiwan's isolation from the body unjustified, saying it undermines global public health cooperation and security. The CCP said this month Taiwan could not attend because of a lack of political basis. Taiwan's government says Beijing has no right to speak for it on the international stage. The World Health Organization has said Taiwan's participation is up to member states to decide. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
A former U.S. Marine pilot is one step closer to being extradited to the United States. A Sydney judge today approved his extradition. The naturalized Australian citizen is accused of illegally training Beijing military pilots. The U.S. government accuses Daniel Dugan of training Chinese pilots to land aircraft on carriers. This was between 2010 and 2012 while he was still a U.S. citizen, violating U.S. arms control law. Dugan reportedly received at least $100,000 for this role. He's also accused of money laundering. Dugan denies all the allegations. In the Sydney court today, Dugan's lawyers said that they will make an appeal. That means the case is now headed to the Australian Attorney General's desk. If extradited, Dugan faces up to 60 years in a U.S. prison. Two of the world's largest chip-making firms prepared for war. According to a Bloomberg report citing unnamed sources, ASML told officials that it's able to remotely disable equipment. That's if the Chinese regime invades Taiwan. The Dutch company is the world's sole supplier of the most cutting-edge chip-making machines. Notably, one of the company's top buyers is TSMC, a Taiwanese firm that makes more than 90% of the globe's advanced semiconductors. The remote shutoff applies to the Dutch company's extreme ultraviolet machines, which are often employed to create chips used in military gear. The equipment has been front and center in the battle for chip dominance, with China trying to gain ground in semiconductor manufacturing. The United States and several of its allies issue a joint statement calling on Taiwan to be allowed to take part in a key meeting of the World Health Organization. The allies include Britain, Canada, Australia, Germany, and Japan. They want to see Taiwan attend next week's World Health Assembly in Geneva, Switzerland. Taiwan is excluded from most international organizations because of objections by the Chinese Communist regime. Beijing claims the democratically governed island is part of its territory. The Taiwan health minister said a delegation would travel to Geneva for a meeting on the sidelines with friendly countries. The Taiwan foreign minister blamed Beijing for Taiwan's exclusion, saying health should not be politicized. The WHO has said that Taiwan's participation in the matter for member states to decide, and that it facilitates the involvement of Taiwanese experts in WHO technical activities. After severe turbulence on a flight this week that killed one person and left dozens hospitalized, Singapore Airlines has altered at least one flight route and tweaked its in-flight seatbelt sign policies. Here's more.
The airline said it is adopting a more cautious approach to turbulence, like not serving hot drinks or meals when the seatbelt sign is on. A London to Singapore flight carrying 211 passengers and 18 crew diverted to Bangkok for an emergency landing on Tuesday. The plane was struck by turbulence that flung passengers and crew around the cabin. The daily London to Singapore route has completed 2 flights since the incident, but those journeys have not flown over the part of Myanmar where the sudden turbulence occurred. Flight Radar 24 shows they flew instead over the Bay of Bengal and Andaman Sea. A 73-year-old British passenger died of a suspected heart attack in Tuesday's incident. A passenger said some people's heads had slammed into the lights above the seats and broken the panels. As of late Thursday, 46 passengers and 2 crew members were still in a hospital in Bangkok. A Thai official said 20 of the 46 remained in intensive care.
Before we head to break, if you have any feedback, please email us at news.today@ntd.com. And stay with us, we'll have more stories in just a moment.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
So there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
The highest art is beautiful, breathtaking, timeless, and moving. Experience art with 5,000 years of history, inspired by the divine. Experience Shen-Yun.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
Losing the fear of looking foolish comes with age.
Who did you steal him from?
Losing your way in your own home doesn't. Confusion with time and place may be a sign of Alzheimer's.
Mom, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine.
Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's.
The top UN court rules on Israel's military operations in Rafah. Hear more from the court and how Israel is likely to respond. Congress kicks off its Memorial Day recess today. What are the highlights and flashpoints on Capitol Hill this week? NTD's Luis Martinez reports. An American soldier currently detained in Russia for theft is seeking to have the arrest decision overturned. How the court ruled today. And thousands of people are protesting proposed government reforms in Taiwan. Find out what the changes would do and why protesters take issue with them. In the NHL playoffs, Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers won a double overtime thriller last night in Dallas. NTD's Dave Martin joins us to discuss the action.
This is NTD News Today, live from our NTD Global Headquarters. Here are Stephania Cox and Chris Beers.
Thank you for joining us. Stephania will be back next week. We start with some breaking news about the conflict in the Middle East. The top United Nations court is ordering Israel to halt its military operations against Hamas terrorists in the city of Rafah.
The court considers that, in conformity with the obligations under the Genocide Convention, Israel must immediately halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah governorate which may inflict on the Palestinian group in Gaza conditions of life that could bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part.
In its ruling, the International Court of Justice said the humanitarian situation in Rafah is disastrous, but stopped short of ordering a full ceasefire throughout Gaza. South Africa brought the case before the UN court and requested a ceasefire. Israel is unlikely to comply with the order. Ahead of the ruling, Israel government said, quote, "No power on earth will stop Israel from protecting its citizens and going after Hamas in Gaza." The UN Security Council is also scheduled to vote later today on a resolution that strongly condemns attacks on humanitarian workers and UN personnel. This comes as the agency resumes transporting aid to Gaza from the temporary pier built by the U.S. And the Israeli military said it recovered from Gaza the bodies of 3 hostages killed on October 7th. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill wrapping up a busy week as Congress begins its Memorial Day recess today. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez joins us now from the Libertarian National Convention in D.C. to go over this week's legislative agenda and what's to come. Luis, what are some of the highlights and flashpoints?
First of all, good evening, Chris. And yes, I'm here at the 2024 Libertarian National Convention. Later today, presidential candidate RFK will deliver a speech, and tomorrow night, former President Donald Trump. So it'll be interesting to see what they both have to say. You can live stream, you can see the RFK and Trump speeches on NTD and our website. So for the legislative wrap-up, Chris, this week, the House of Representatives began the markup process of the appropriation bills for fiscal year 2025. House Republicans voted along party lines and approved all allocations for the 12 appropriation bills. The Republican strategy thus far is to reduce non-military government spending by 6% and increase military spending by 1%. The highlight this week of this markup process was Secretary of State Antony Blinken. He had to make the trip to Capitol Hill to testify and defend his $58 billion budget request for the State Department and Foreign Operations. Chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, Tom Cole, actually allocated only $51 billion, leaving a $7 billion gap in between what the White House wants and what House Republicans are willing to offer. Let's listen to Secretary of State Antony Blinken defending his budget request before the House Appropriations Committee.
We have a deep concern about the Rafah gate, which I endeavored and President Biden endeavored to get open in October so that assistance could begin to flow into people who need it. That gate is closed because of combat activities near and around the gate, the environment for bringing the assistance in.
The House of Representatives also passed this week a bill that would prohibit non-citizens from voting in local elections in the District of Columbia. Very important to note that at least 50 Democrats joined Republicans in passing this bill. Now, Democrats who opposed this effort to prohibit non-citizens from voting in local elections in the District of Columbia, like Congressman Adriano Espaillat from New York, argue that this has been the case in the United States for several decades, most notably in the states of California, Vermont, and Maryland. Let's listen to what Democratic Congressman Adriano Espaillat had to say about this.
What's your position on allowing non-citizens to vote in states like California, Vermont, Maryland?
For municipal elections, it's been done in the past, as late as in the 30s. People that pay taxes, that in New York City, it was done for the New York City school boards. So this is not a new concept. I don't understand why people are getting all bent out of shape about it. This has been around in America since the 1930s.
Great.
There are at least 16 jurisdictions in the United States that currently allow for non-citizens to vote in local elections, but the vote this week in the House of Representatives with this bill in particular prohibiting non-citizens from voting in the District of Columbia in their local elections will surely be used during election season to highlight those congressmen who voted to protect non-citizen voting rights. Chris.
And Luis, what can we expect when Congress comes back from Memorial Day recess?
So next week, well, actually, when congressmen return from Memorial Day recess, what we can look forward to is that Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has already announced that he's planning on bringing a resolution to the House floor for a vote. This resolution would hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress for withholding the audio recordings of the interview in between President Joe Biden and Special Counsel Robert Hur as part of the Justice Department's special investigation into President Biden's handling of classified materials. Let's listen to Speaker of the House Mike Johnson and his logic for bringing this resolution to a vote in the House floor.
This is not about politics. You've heard that allegation. This is about process. The committees have to do their legislative work. They use the audio to evaluate the work and the accuracy of the special counsel. We have the transcript. Should be no surprises here.
Speaker of the House Mike Johnson also announced this week that he's extending an invitation to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to come to the United States and deliver a speech to a joint session of Congress. This will certainly put Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer in a tight spot as he has called for new elections in Israel and a change in government, moving away from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and also would put Democrats who have been critical of President Biden's foreign policy in support of Israel war against Hamas in Gaza. Let's listen to what Democratic Caucus Chairman Pete Aguilar and also New York Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had to say about this invitation.
We're focused on delivering solutions and having important conversations. Look, we respect world leaders when they are in town and when they come and want to have conversations with us.
I just don't think it's constructive for Netanyahu to be doing a joint address in this moment. Period, regardless of who's sending him.
So it will definitely be interesting to see when Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu decides to accept this invitation. And it will also be interesting to see if Democrats, both in the House of Representatives and in the Senate, will boycott this joint speech to joint sessions of Congress. Chris.
And Luis, on the Senate side, what are the main takeaways from this week?
Well, from this week, the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer brought for a second time the bipartisan border security bill drafted by Senator James Lankford, Kristen Sinema, and Chris Murphy last February. Brought this bill once again to a vote on the floor of the Senate. The bill was defeated this second time. It was defeated, losing more votes from Democrats and Republicans, and it was seen as a political vote, a messaging vote to signal that Democrats are willing to work in favor of securing the border. Let's listen to what Senator Tillis had to say about this.
He is bleeding votes because of the failure at the border, and he's using this as a shiny object to make people think that he's really trying to get it done.
The other highlight from the Senate this week is Senator Rick Scott from Florida announcing that he's throwing his hat in for the contentious race of becoming the next majority leader of Republicans. Right now, there's only 3 senators, including Senator Rick Scott, who has announced their intentions. The other 2 are the 2 Johns, John Cornyn and Senators John Thune. So that will be the wrap-up this week of what happened in Congress and what we can look forward to in the next couple of weeks. Chris.
All right, Luis Martinez, thank you for that detailed update. Fulton County DA Fani Willis is appealing the dismissal of several charges in the case against former President Trump. She's asking the court to reconsider the 6 charges thrown out in March because they lacked necessary detail. They are part of a 41-count indictment against Trump and his co-defendants for alleged election interference. Trump and 14 other defendants have pleaded not guilty. 4 others reached plea deals with prosecutors. The judge has not said when he may set a date for the trial, but Willis's appeal to reconsider the charges, as well as Trump's appeal to have Willis removed, are likely to delay a potential start. The Republican National Committee is at odds with the U.S. Secret Service over where to place protesters outside the convention. The RNC is set to hold their convention at Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee in July. The RNC first publicly raised concerns to the agency over the proximity of planned protest zones last month. The GOP wants protesters in a designated area several streets away from the path of convention delegates and other attendees. Now the party has accused Secret Service of ignoring safety concerns. The Secret Service says the host city is responsible for establishing protest zones, not the agency. The agency says it's confident in the security plan being developed, and the Secret Service claims publicly disclosing security information undermines efforts to keep the event safe. Ohio's Republican Governor Mike DeWine is calling a rare special session of the General Assembly. That's to make sure both President Biden and former President Trump are on the state's 2024 ballot. DeWine says Ohioans need to be able to have the opportunity to cast a vote for major party candidates. Here's Ohio's governor on the ballot issue.
Ohio is running out of time to get Joe Biden, the sitting president of the United States, on the ballot this fall. Failing to do so is simply not acceptable. This is this is an absurd situation.
The special session is set for Tuesday. The Democratic National Convention, where Biden will be nominated, is after Ohio's August 7th ballot deadline. The convention in Chicago starts August 19th and ends on the 22nd. The special session would let lawmakers address the certification deadline. Lawmakers could not find a solution to the ballot issue by the May 9th deadline set by Ohio's Secretary of State. State House Speaker Jason Stevens said this week that lawmakers did not have the will to pass the necessary measures and called the environment hyper-political. Attorneys for Hunter Biden are due in court today. It's the final hearing before the first son is expected to stand trial on federal firearms charges in Delaware. Hunter Biden is charged with lying about his drug use in October 2018 on a form to buy a gun. He has acknowledged an addiction to crack cocaine during that period, but his lawmakers have said he didn't break the law and the case is politically motivated. The president's son is also facing federal tax charges in Los Angeles. Trial in that case is set for September. He's accused of failing to pay nearly $1.5 million in taxes over a 4-year period. The back taxes have since been paid. The case of AI-generated robocalls mimicking President Biden's voice is back in the news. A political consultant faces $6 million fines and over 24 criminal charges for sending the calls before New Hampshire's primary. Steve Kramer admitted to orchestrating the message, which used an AI-generated Biden voice saying, "What a bunch of malarkey." The message falsely claimed voting in the primary would prohibit voting in November. Kramer says his goal was to highlight the potential dangers of artificial intelligence. And the Supreme Court has ruled in favor of the federal government on how sentences should be imposed on convicted felons or drug offenders found guilty of possessing firearms. Under federal law, a felon who has 3 or more prior convictions for serious drug offenses or violent crimes would face a minimum of 15 years in prison. A serious drug offense carries a sentence of at least 10 years and must involve a controlled substance, but some defendants argue that frequent changes in drug laws could unfairly trigger the law if there's a long gap between drug and firearms convictions. Justice Samuel Alito wrote the 2 cases before the court asked if a crime constitutes a serious drug offense if the substance involved was later decriminalized. The court's majority opinion, it did. The Supreme Court is currently deliberating another case under the same law. A ruling is expected in June. Coming up, Boeing is on schedule to meet the FAA's deadline to present quality control fixes. The agency ordered the plan after a hole blew open in the side of an airborne 737 MAX plane.
One in 5 children worldwide are faced with the reality of living without food. No family dinners, no special treats, not enough energy to play. All around the world, hunger is affecting children's physical and mental health. Toddlers are suffering from acute malnutrition, which stunts their growth. Kids are forced to drop out of school so they can help support their families. Conflict, inflation, and climate have ignited the worst famine in our lifetime. And we are fed up. Fed up that hunger devours dreams. Fed up that hunger destroys joy. Fed up with the fact that hunger eats childhood. Help us feed the futures of children all over the world by visiting getfedupnow.org. For as little as $10 a month, you can join Save the Children as we support children and families in desperate need of our help. Now is the time to get fed up and give back. When you join the cause, your $10 monthly donation can help communities in need of life-saving treatments and nutrients, prevent children from dropping out of school, support our work with communities and governments to help children go from short-term surviving to long-term thriving. And now, thanks to special government grants, every dollar you give can multiply up to 10 times the impact. That means more food, water, medicine, and help for kids around the world. You'll also receive a free tote bag to share your support for children in need. Having your childhood eaten away by hunger is unimaginable. Get fed up. Call us now or visit getfedupnow.org.
When I drink it, the first thing was I feel the warmth in my tummy. It's kind of like gently radiating out, a kind of a very comforting warmth. And it was really good, actually. I felt much better. I did feel, actually, an effect. And I find that it is actually better when I take it regularly.
It's actually steamed and dried 9 times. And so it's really, the essence is really extracted.
Then the second time, I tried it really like on an empty stomach and just 2 teaspoons of it, and over a few times. And wow, that was a big difference, because suddenly I could feel, wow, I was very good energized. I didn't have to eat. I could work outside in the garden for a couple of hours, and I still felt very well. And I was impressed by that. So I think it's a good product.
Welcome back. We have more updates on the weather. Severe storms battered towns in the plains overnight, just days after deadly tornadoes hit the region. In Iowa, storms downed trees and power lines between Des Moines and Davenport early this morning. The storms brought the threat of large hail and damaging winds, with the possibility of more tornadoes. According to PowerOutage.us, more than 50,000 customers were in the dark in Iowa this morning. About 20,000 still are. In Oklahoma, a tornado was on the ground for about an hour last evening. Parts of Oklahoma and Nebraska also reported extremely large hail. some the size of baseballs. The latest storms came as a tornado earlier this week took the lives of 4 residents in an Iowa town. The Weather Service says the storms are still moving east through eastern Iowa and Illinois. Aerospace giant Boeing is on track to meet the Federal Aviation Administration's deadline. That's for presenting quality control fixes for its assembly line. On Thursday, the embattled plane manufacturer said it will present its plan next week. The FAA ordered the plan in late February after a hole blew open in the side of an airborne 737 MAX jet. The agency said its audit of the production line at Boeing and its key 737 MAX supplier found multiple alleged failures to comply with manufacturing quality control requirements. The FAA gave Boeing 90 days to present a plan, and that deadline is next week. The items you buy at a discount on Amazon could be stolen goods. Persistent problems with organized crime rings are pushing retailers to fight back. A CNN report found that retail crime rings use low-level thieves to clear hundreds of thousands of dollars in merchandise from store shelves. Products are then sold to unsuspecting customers hunting for deals on sites like Amazon and eBay. Now, retailers are devoting more staff and financial resources to try to short-circuit theft. More of them are working on their own to deliver most of the evidence authorities need to prosecute the crime. Some have even invested in police-like investigation centers to sift through data and pinpoint thieves who belong to crime rings. Others are researching body-worn cameras for employees or installing license plates readers in their parking lots. But some of these measures have been met with resistance over privacy concerns. For example, drugstore chain Rite Aid agreed to a 5-year ban on facial recognition technology that came after the Federal Trade Commission found it led to false shoplifting allegations against customers. And federal law enforcement officials in California squashed a squash-filled drug shipment Monday night. Close to 6 tons of meth was hidden inside more than 1,400 squash packages, according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Officials there say the undercover shipment was discovered in a commercial tractor trailer at the Otay Mesa port in San Diego. CBP says they found more than 11,000 pounds of meth worth around $18 million. The drugs and vehicles were seized while the driver, who did have a border crossing card, was handed over to Homeland Security. Since October 2023, CBP says it has seized more than 12,000 illegal drug shipments at border checkpoints. And the U.S. Naval Academy's commencement ceremony is underway in Annapolis, Maryland. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin gave an address. Here's a look.
And I hope that you'll see your years here as a long lesson in grit, adaptability, and discipline. You put in the reps and sets to succeed as a team and grow as teammates. And that's exactly what we'll continue to expect of you today and every day. The United States has the most capable Navy and the Marine Corps in the world. And make no mistake, we're going to keep it that way. And you are going to keep it that way.
And staying with the military, check this out. The U.S. Air Force has released in-flight photos of the first new American bomber aircraft in more than 30 years. The B-21 Raider military aircraft took a test flight Wednesday. The stealth bomber was first unveiled in 2022. The aircraft got its name from the 1942 Doolittle raid over Tokyo. It's a long-range strike bomber capable of carrying nuclear weapons. The B-21 Raider is currently undergoing testing at Edwards Air Force Base in California. According to defense officials, the test program is on track to meet timelines for deployment by next spring. The wreck of one of the most storied U.S. Navy submarines of World War II has been found. The USS Harder was sunk in a battle on August 24, 1944, as the U.S. sought to retake the Philippines from occupying Japanese forces. According to the Navy's History and Heritage Command Thursday, the USS Harder was found sitting upright and mostly intact. It was 3,000 feet down in the South China Sea off the northern Philippine island of Luzon. The submarine, which had the motto of "Hit 'em harder," went down along with its entire crew of 79 men. The NHHC said the wreck should be respected by all parties as a war grave. The wreck was confirmed by data provided by the Lost 52 project. That's an effort to find the 52 U.S. submarines lost in World War II. The group has already located at least 6 of those subs. And nearly 1,600 military personnel placed small flags near the headstones of thousands of fallen service members. The Memorial Day ceremony was held at Arlington National Cemetery outside of Washington, D.C. Arlington is home to war heroes, including the SEAL Team 6 commander and founder Richard Dick Marcinko, Audie Murphy, and Walter Reed. Former President John F. Kennedy and Jackie Kennedy Onassis are also buried there. Army Staff Sergeant Anderson, who lost a leg in Afghanistan, said he felt compelled to participate in the annual tradition because of a fallen colleague.
I had a fallen brother in arms, so this day means a lot to recognize him, give him his respect. Unfortunately, it's like not laid in ANC, but being able to lay flags on these headstones is giving that contribution to let him know that this day is his day.
You could be in that position, right? Because you signed up, to join the military, and you might not always realize what that means until you come out here and understand, and reflect on what, these previous, veterans and other service members have given, to the country.
Today we are consolidated as a unit, right? And we are out here to place flags on the headstones of soldiers who are no longer with us and who also reside here in Arlington National Cemetery.
We take pride to honor the sacrifice and courage of the fallen, and this is a very humbling experience. Not everybody gets to do this.
Over 4 hours, small U.S. flags were placed in front of more than 260,000 headstones. They'll remain there through Memorial Day. And travelers are beginning to head out for Memorial Day weekend, and heavy delays are expected. Some are already stuck in traffic at the airport. Highways and airports are likely to be jammed for the next few days. AAA predicts this will be the busiest start of summer weekend in nearly 20 years, with over 43 million people expected to travel at least 50 miles from home between Thursday and Monday.
Well, it's pretty fun, but you have to leave on time because there's a lot of traffic. And make sure you check your flight status because there are a lot of flight delays. I'm realizing we're delayed for 2 hours? Make sure you have water. Make sure that you have travel buddies because that helps, when you're traveling during the delay. Well, I don't know why we're delayed, but someone told me that they were delayed yesterday, so maybe it's a ripple effect, but I'm not sure. But yeah, it's quite inconveniencing.
The TSA says up to 3 million people might pass through airport checkpoints today alone. Government figures show airfares down 6% and hotel rates down 0.4% compared with a year ago. Prices for renting a car or truck are down 10%, but AAA says the nationwide price of gas has risen about 6 cents from a year ago. Most travelers are expected to travel by car. A record number of 401k savers had balances over $1 million at the end of the first quarter this year. According to Fidelity Investments, 48,000 accounts had over $1 million in savings. That's up 15% from the 422,000 accounts reported at the end of 2023 and 43% higher than a year ago. The data is based on 23 million plan participants at Fidelity. So how did the so-called 401k millionaires do it? Fidelity said the average participant with a balance over $1 million has been saving for 26 years and contributes 17% of their income. That includes any matches they receive from their employer. Coming up, thousands of people are protesting proposed parliament reforms in Taiwan. Find out what the reforms would do and why protesters take issue with them. And 4 people are dead after a building collapsed in Spain. The latest on what we know and what might have caused the collapse. And the ex-US Marine accused of training Chinese military pilots fights could be handed over to the US. A Sydney judge greenlights his extradition. More in just a moment here on NTD News Today.
Do you know that Cars for Compassion is the best way to donate your car? Through this non-profit program, you can not only help us keep bringing the world independent and daringly truthful journalism, but also significantly impact the life of somebody who needs a vehicle. The Epoch Times fights misinformation and big tech censorship by being independent and unbound to advertisers. Every single contribution to Cars for Compassion is a powerful endorsement of our unwavering mission. All you have to do is go to carsforcompassion.org and let us know about your car, and we'll schedule a pickup time and email you a tax-deductible receipt. To do this, just click the link below, support truth, compassion, and hope. Donate your car right now at www.carsforcompassion.org.
What do you do when your tire goes flat and there's no air anywhere? You reach for Bullseye Pro, the smarter, faster, hands-free way to fill it up with air. Bullseye Pro is equipped with a rechargeable lithium-ion power plant. So fast and so convenient. It's like the power of an air compressor in the palm of your hand. Look, you can inflate all 4 tires on a single charge. It has a built-in smart pressure digital sensor that gauges and automatically stops when the set tire pressure is reached. Easily inflate pool toys, exercise balls, and more. Call or go online now and get the complete Bullseye Pro inflation system for the factory direct price of just $79.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free, and we'll give you a 50% discount on a second one. Order now.
To order, call 1-800-984-7221. That's 1-800-984-7221, or go to getbullseyepro.com.
Hi, I'm Tim Che, the director and writer of The Firing Squad. You can participate in our Million Souls campaign, inviting everyone you know to Jesus. Listen, we all face some kind of firing squad in our lives, and yet faith in the Lord, that challenge can lead us to true peace in this insane world. We can't do it without you. We're competing with big Hollywood movies, so we're relying on your voice to spread the word. Thank you again for supporting this important movie.
The 2024 NTD 9th International Chinese Vocal Competition is scheduled to take place at Merkin Hall, Kaufman Music Center in New York from September 18th to 21st. The competition specially invites vocalists from the world-famous Shenyun Performing Arts to serve as judges. The prestigious Gold Award is $10,000. Chinese vocal artists aged 18 to 50 are welcome to register.
Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is still in Italy meeting with G7 finance officials. Organizers officially kicked off the 2-day meeting today. Yellen is pushing for more ambitious options to unlock Russian funds frozen in Europe and the U.S. Russia's central bank has around $260 billion of frozen assets in those 2 regions. The U.S. Congress has passed legislation allowing the seizure of Russian assets located in the U.S., but that's only around $5 billion. Most of the funds are in Europe. European officials have stopped short of confiscating the funds and handing them to Ukraine as compensation for Russia's destruction. The finance ministers are working toward a final decision next month. That's when the summit of G7 leaders will take place in southern Italy. Now we have some short headlines from Russia, Spain, and other European countries. A Russian court today ruling to keep an American soldier under arrest. Russia charged Army member Gordon Black with theft in the eastern city of Vladivostok. Black sought to have the arrest decision overturned. He said he would stay in Russia during the investigation and trial, but the court today ruled that the soldier will remain in custody until at least July 2nd. Neither Russian authorities, the Pentagon or others have suggested anything like espionage as a concern. Russia says the case has no political element. Black is suspected of stealing from a woman he was in a relationship with. The Pentagon said Black broke Army rules by traveling to Russia without authorization. Russia today said that Ukraine is using American weapons to strike civilian infrastructure. The country's foreign minister said Ukraine is using the weapons to strike targets outside what he called the conflict zone. He didn't identify the target location he was referring to, but he said they're residential areas in Russian territory. He also said the U.S. initially told Ukraine not to use the weapons on targets inside Russia. Ukraine is negotiating to maximize electricity imports from the European Union. That's to compensate for generators destroyed by Russia. Russian attacks on Ukraine's energy sector have intensified since March. This results in significant damage and blackouts in many regions. Ukraine says the attacks have caused more than $1 billion worth of damage to the energy sector. Kyiv now seeks to import almost 50% more energy from the EU. Ukraine says this depends on how fast other countries can expand the capacity of their grids. 4 people are dead after a restaurant building collapsed in Spain yesterday. The incident happened on the beach in the vacation destination Palma de Mallorca. The victims are 2 German tourists, a Spanish waitress, and a Senegalese man. Police say the accident was possibly caused by excessive weight on the terrace of the beach club. It comes as Spain's islands prepare for a summer tourism season expected to bring millions of visitors. Local residents said the collapsed building went through construction work last summer. It reportedly opened back to the public just a few days ago. The country of Georgia today accused the U.S. of pursuing a policy of threats and blackmail. The U.S. plans to impose visa restrictions against Georgia's members of parliament who back a controversial bill. The foreign agents bill has sparked a political crisis in Georgia. The country says the protests are the biggest since Georgia gained independence from the Soviet Union. The law would require some organizations that receive foreign funding to register as foreign agents. Russia uses similar tactics against independent media organizations. A former U.S. Marine pilot is one step closer to being extradited to the United States. A Sydney judge today approved his extradition. The naturalized Australian citizen is accused of illegally training Beijing military pilots. The U.S. government accused Daniel Dugan of training Chinese pilots to land on aircraft carriers. This was between 2010 and 2012 while he was still a U.S. citizen, violating U.S. arms control laws. Dugan reportedly received at least $100,000 for this role. He's also accused of money laundering. Dugan denies all the allegations. In the Sydney court today, Dugan's lawyers said that they will make an appeal. That will mean the case is now headed to the Australian Attorney General's desk. If extradited, Dugan faces up to 60 years in U.S. prison. The United States and several of its allies issue a joint statement calling on Taiwan to be allowed to take part in a key meeting of the World Health Organization. The allies include Britain, Canada, Australia, Germany, and Japan. They want to see Taiwan attend next week's World Health Assembly in Geneva, Switzerland. Taiwan is excluded from most international organizations because of objections by the Chinese Communist regime. Beijing claims the democratically governed island is part of its territory. The Taiwan Health Ministry said a delegation would travel to Geneva for meetings on the sidelines with friendly countries. The Taiwan foreign minister blamed Beijing for Taiwan's exclusion, saying health should not be politicized. The WHO has said that Taiwan's participation is a matter for member states to decide, and that it facilitates the involvement of Taiwanese experts in WHO technical activities. In Taiwan, tens of thousands of people are demonstrating against parliamentary changes. This comes just days after William Lai was sworn in as the new president. Tens of thousands of people took to the streets around Taiwan's parliament earlier today. This was the second rally outside parliament this week against proposed parliamentary changes. Lai's Democratic Progressive Party holds a minority in parliament. The two opposition parties, KMT and TPP, together have a majority. Lai's party is trying to stop the opposition from pushing through measures to give lawmakers more oversight over the government.
The KMT and TPP cannot rely solely on majority votes and ignore the voice of the minority. I hope they can discuss democratically. We need discussion, not skip the process and bury those views.
The process does not reflect our democratic value. I will slowly lose my trust in Taiwan's democracy if they continue to pass new laws in this manner. I hope through this protest we can stop, slow down, and improve the process.
The changes would give lawmakers the power to ask the military, private companies, or individuals to disclose information deemed relevant by members of parliament. It would also introduce prison terms for government officials found to be in contempt of parliament. The Democratic Progressive Party says more debate is needed. Some protesters accuse the opposition parties of trying to force through the reforms and working secretly with communist China. More than 100 people are believed to be dead after a landslide buried a village in a remote mountainous part of Papua New Guinea. An emergency response is underway. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation reported that the landslide hit the area at roughly 3 a.m. Residents said the number of people killed could be much higher. Australia, a neighbor and Papua New Guinea's most generous provider of foreign aid, said it's ready to help. Videos on social media showed residents pulling out bodies buried under rocks and trees. The landslide also blocked the road, raising concerns about the town's fuel supply. With 10 million people, Papua New Guinea is the most populous South Pacific nation after Australia. Coming up, the NHL playoffs. Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers won a double overtime thriller last night in Dallas. NTD's Dave Martin joins us to discuss the action. And Australia's biggest festival kicks off in Sydney. The event mixes creativity, innovation, and community connection with artistic events centered on light installations, music, ideas, and food. More shortly here on NTD News Today.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
This is an important message from USA Family Protection. You may now be eligible for up to $50,000 for your funeral and other final expenses, starting at less than $1 a day.
Mom, it's so great to see you.
Oh, you too, son. And I have to tell you, I've been thinking about the future, and it's really important to me that I don't leave you and your sister with my debts, especially the cost of my funeral and other final expenses, which can be more than $9,000.
Yeah, that would be really hard on us.
Well, I called USA Family Protection, and with one phone call, I was eligible for $50,000 for my funeral and final expenses.
But what about your health issues? Don't they require a medical exam?
That's the best part. There's no medical exam, just a few quick questions, and I was able to get coverage right over the phone. Plus, my rates can never be increased, my benefits can never be decreased, and my coverage can never be canceled.
That's really great, Mom. But can you afford it?
Yes, rates start at less than $1 a day, and when the time comes, payout to you and your sister happens in as little as a few days. I am so happy to know you two are taken care of.
Thanks, Mom. Me too.
Don't leave your loved ones with your debt. Call USA Family Protection at 800-760-6571 and get up to $50,000 for your funeral and other final expenses. There's no medical exam, just a few health questions, and you can be approved right over the phone. Your rates can never be increased, your benefits can never be decreased, and your coverage can never be canceled. Call 800-760-6571. There's no hidden fees and no waiting periods to get covered. Call 800-760-6571. There's no obligation. Call 800-760-6571.
And now for your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, a lot going on, but let's start in the NBA, where the Boston Celtics won last night to take a 2-0 lead over Indiana. How did the Pacers get back in this series?
You know, I would say actually same game plan on offense. They're doing well on offense. On defense, maybe better defense in transition, but they really played well here, these two games in Boston. I'm sure it's disappointing to come away without a win, though, especially after game one where they had a lead late in regulation and in overtime, somehow lost with some critical turnovers at the end. Now, yesterday, they shot the ball well. They pushed the pace they liked. Now, Boston is also very comfortable at this pace, too. Boston actually shot the ball better than them still. So game 3 is going to be Saturday in Indiana. As we saw in the last series, the Pacers are very tough at home. Now tonight we've got game 2 between the Timberwolves and the Mavericks. This is going to be in Minnesota. Dallas won the first game. Minnesota pretty much has to win game 2. If you lose the first 2 games at home, very difficult to recover and win a series.
Okay, so Dave, let's look at hockey. A thrilling game last night that went into double overtime before Edmonton won. How did they do it?
Yeah, Connor McDavid got the game winner in overtime, double overtime, as you said, to give Edmonton a 1-0 lead here. But as you said, this is a thrilling game. Now, overtime in hockey, these are sudden death. Whoever scores first wins, so it's intense the whole time. And there were some twists and turns. McDavid himself was given a 4-minute penalty in the first overtime for high sticking that put his team at a disadvantage. Somehow they survived it, though. Dallas, meanwhile, had 2 shots that hit the post. I mean, they were so close. And then McDavid, now he's the league's 3-time MVP. He had a great look at his shot, but he was robbed by Dallas goalie Jake Ottinger. McDavid was really beside himself after missing that one. But then in the second overtime, he got a second chance. He didn't miss it at all. Got it in. The Oilers now have a 1-0 lead. Now tonight, the Rangers will host Florida in New York. Florida won the first game in that series, 3-0.
Incredible. Now let's move on to golf news, the Scottie Scheffler thing. The police officer who arrested Scheffler last week is being disciplined for not having his body cam activated during that incident. But the Louisville police have released what footage they do have, though it's from a distance. Does that clear any of these issues up?
No, not really. I mean, it confirms some of it, though. But probably the most important part doesn't seem to be shown here. Now, we're going to show it to you right here. We've got the footage that they released here. Now, the car moving there is presumably Scheffler's SUV. You can see someone in a yellow reflector jacket going after it as it stops, and then several others gather around the vehicle. You can see them get the person out, and they eventually take him away. Now, Scheffler is being charged with second-degree assault against a police officer, which is a felony. Now, that's alleged to have taken place when the officer was dragged to the ground by Scheffler's car, and we don't know when that incident might have taken place. Meanwhile, Scheffler's attorney said he's planning to still plead not guilty, isn't interested in a plea bargain. The arraignment for this case is going to be scheduled for June 3rd for Scheffler.
Man, this is really blossoming here. All right, Dave Martin, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
Your nighttime snacks may be disrupting your sleep. Gina Marie breaks it down for us in Strong Mind and Body today.
If you are having trouble sleeping, what you had for dinner or that late night snack may hold a clue. A systematic review of 23 reports was published in January 2024. It found that the Mediterranean diet might be the best one for healthy sleep. The researchers concluded many factors are at play. This includes the healthy lifestyle those who follow a Mediterranean diet tend to lead. However, one factor is a constant. The proper Mediterranean diet is notably void of refined sugar. Sleep and blood sugar levels are intimately linked. There is a small amount of glucose in your blood at all times. Our brains regulate its level around the clock. When blood sugar levels get too high or too low, that can lead to disrupted sleep. A high intake of sugar throughout the day or before bed leads to high levels of glucose circulating in the blood. Since what comes up must ideally come down, a spike in blood sugar levels leads to an inevitable crash. If this crash happens while asleep, fluctuations in hormones that are working to bring your blood sugar back up to balance can wake you up. This can disrupt your sleep patterns. There are several indicators that your blood sugar levels may be off. This includes waking up at certain times of the night, frequent urination, temperature fluctuations, and vivid dreams. So how can you balance your blood sugar before bed? Snacks that are low in carbohydrates and high in protein can ensure a good night's sleep. High carbohydrate intake is associated with significantly poorer sleep quality. When choosing a bedtime snack to help regulate blood sugar, try apple slices with peanut butter, hummus with raw celery or carrots, or avocado slices with hemp seeds on whole wheat toast. In conclusion, to prevent blood sugar drops and spikes while you are sleeping, consistently eat a balanced diet that is low in refined sugar.
A boy on Long Island has just gotten a new bionic arm. The 5-year-old was born without a left hand and is the youngest person to receive the device. Open Bionics 3D printed this prosthetic for Jordan Marotta. According to the company, the hero arm is typically meant for kids 8 and up. Jordan's mother discovered Open Bionics on social media and got in touch when they opened a location in New York. She said the new arm has greatly boosted her son's confidence. Open Bionics has also provided hero arms to amputees in Ukraine, Germany, and Australia. 6-time Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest champion Takeru Kobayashi is retiring from competitive eating, citing health concerns. The 46-year-old says decades of overeating has left him with no appetite or sensation of fullness. His wife, Maggie James, says he now goes days without eating at all. Kobayashi announced the news in Netflix documentary Hack Your Health: The Secrets of Your Gut. He started his career in 2000 on a Japanese variety show where he ate 16 bowls of ramen in 1 hour. 1 year later, he set a new world record by eating 50 hot dogs in 12 minutes at Nathan's Coney Island hot dog eating contest. He went on to win the mustard yellow belt that year and the 5 years that followed. And Kobasu, the dog that launched 1,000 Doge memes, has died at the age of 18. The Japanese Shiba Inu fell into a deep sleep Friday morning, her owner wrote in a blog post. She had announced in 2022 that Kobasu had leukemia and liver disease. Kobasu became famous back in 2010 when a photo of her posing with folded paws and quizzical expressions spread across the internet. It sparked the Doge meme, based on an international misspelling of the word dog. 3 years later, she became the face of alternative cryptocurrency Dogecoin, a tongue-in-cheek response to Bitcoin. And firefighters in Indiana saved the day pulling a kitten from a storm drain. The firefighters say they were called to help after people nearby saw the animal was stuck. After some tricky maneuvers, the team was able to lasso the small kitten to safety. And Australia's biggest festival, named Vivid, kicks off today in Sydney. Organizers say the event mixes creativity and community, connection with music, ideas, and food. The festival lasts 23 days. This year's theme is humanity. The Vivid Festival includes concerts, discussions, and food from local and international artists and others. During the opening evening, a local First Nation group performed a welcome to the country ceremony opposite the Sydney Opera House. After a fireworks show, the opera sails, the Harbour Bridge, and the Central Business District were illuminated. According to the New South Wales Jobs and Tourism Department, last year's event attracted nearly 3.5 million attendees. And for round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Be sure to stick around for NTD Newsroom at 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll cover more stories from the U.S. and around the world.